We will get there. You are live. Hey, everyone. Dave here with Affordable Door and Gate. I hope everybody's doing good. You can question this is a live stream, so we're just trying out some new stuff. We're just rolling with the punches. I thought I'd jump on here. Jake emailed me and had a question about, he says, Dave, he says, I see that you drive a fleet of Chevy vehicles, and I didn't know if there was a reason for it. Any insight would be great. Didn't know if there's reliability kind of goes on with it and whatnot. So, I'm not going to read all of it. I appreciate the question, Jake. So that's kind of a good question. I I got kind of hooked on the Chevys. Honestly, it depends. It's just whatever's not in the shop, especially when you got payments. I'll tell you some stories. I think it really started out with my brother-in-law. He ended up taking me down to these guys, the Holly, the LS Fest. And so I was going down there with him. I seen how reliable the LS motor was. And what really hooked me was I actually had it's probably about like an 04, 05 Chevy. It's the one I always think that has the headlights that um, looks like Batman. It's got the kind of wing front end to it. And so, anyways, we went, well, the motor, when I bought the truck, it always had a really soft knock in it, right? And the guys drove it. The guys actually enjoyed it. It was just a 6 liter gas. And I remember it ended up one day he went down the road. Luckily, it wasn't too far from the shop and the thing puked out. He said, hey, man, he said, this thing was knocking. He said, next thing I know, it just quit running. I was like, really? So we went down there. It was basically, we couldn't turn it over. I didn't know if it was a starter. I didn't know what was going on with it. So I ended up, I got it over to my brother-in-law's and we started looking for a motor. And he told me, he said, hey, he said, you can buy a 5.3. I think it's a 5.3, right? He says, you can buy a 5.3 for that and it'll bolt right up and it'll actually run on the same harness and everything. It'll drop right in there pretty much. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. So mind you, at the time, I'll tell you the story on this in a minute. I had a 6.4 diesel Ford. So, anyways, the truck goes in, right? I start searching around on Craigslist because that's what we had back then. And I ended up finding a motor for like 600 or 800 bucks. Dirt cheap, man. I'm thinking this is especially when I had the 6.4 Power Stroke because I looked up motors for that. And at the time they were 10 grand all day long. So I go over, it's probably about an hour and a half. I drive one way. I look at this motor, right? The guy's got in his garage. It's not covered real nice. It's not in like a super, it's in a garage. It's kind of dusty. It's a little bit dirty. It wasn't really up to my standards, right? But at the time, heavy into the business, I don't got time. I ain't got time to go search for, 5 more motors and go to junkyards and stuff like that. So I basically asked, basic questions. And of course, the guy could have been lying, and he says, well, I think it's got about 80,000 miles on it. It ran good, of course. Oh yeah, I've heard this before. So I ended up purchasing it. Threw it in the back of the truck. I don't know if he had a cherry picker or whatever. Take it over to the brother-in-law's, right? And over a weekend, I don't even know if it took us a full weekend. We might have done it like in a day because I know we worked a full day and then the night is when we had a little bit of an issue. Anyways, we get this motor in, right? We swap this thing out. And I'm just amazed that the simplicity of this because for 800 bucks even, it might have been 600. We just swapped out a motor in a day, basically. It wasn't no longer than a weekend. We got this thing up and running, man. And I mean, as soon as we fire this thing up, I'll never forget my brother-in-law's face. He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, this thing, it's not even knocking or nothing. And I'm like, so normally, and he goes, normally they don't have oil pressure, so they knock for a little bit, but this one fired up, it was raring to go. We were going to take it back to my house and we ran into a little problem. The problem is that I think we put like a new water pump on it. It ended up having a plug put into it and we didn't catch it. So we slipped the hose right over it and the truck was overheating. It overheat, and we let it cool off and it would start overheating. It was really weird how it was acting. It was like, what's going on? And, something must be wrong. Maybe we got a blown head gasket. Anyways, we found the problem, fixed it. Truck ran ever since. The only problem I ever had with that truck was towards the end of its life, we ended up the damper doors weren't working correctly. So the guys were complaining, especially up here in Michigan, the defrost is not working, which is a problem because you basically can't see. And if you can't see, you can't drive. So that's always kind of a little bit of a hindrance. So, anyways, now going back to this, if you guys jump on here too, like I said, if you got any questions, garage door related, personal, I don't care. You can ask anything. It's always a free for all. It's a live stream. I'm just testing. Like I said, it looks like everything's working. So, or give me a thumbs up. Let me know. Audio's good. So, anyways, I buy this Ford, right? I got this Ford truck. It's what year was that? An '08. It was kind of like the first year, they had the 6 liter, then they had the 6.4, and then they came out with the 6.7. And so the 6.4, come to find out, was a bridge motor. I didn't know this. At the time, I was young, I was dumb, and I was doing the whole, you know, basically I came from the era of a Cummins, you know what I mean? And they ran forever. Cummins never die. Cummins just, so I came from this era of diesel motors, never had problems. They run for 300,000 miles and you just don't have any problems. So as I buy this truck, the guy mentions to me, I think I bought it somewhere over by like Detroit or something like that. And I remember this guy, he goes, if you're going to keep this truck, I'd probably delete some stuff. And I was just like, oh yeah. Like, sure. Whatever. I'll figure it out. It's a diesel, man. It runs forever. And all I remember is when I bought that truck, you opened up the hood, you open it up. And I mean, it looked like the movie's Transformer, like everything in there was moving. It was just like, oh, everything was packed in, pipes, plumbing. I mean, hoses. It's like, good God. It's like, good thing this thing's a diesel and good thing I don't ever have to work on this thing, Yeah, right. So I remember I get this truck, I start driving. First thing that happens, I get this thing home. I'm almost home. I remember alternator light comes on. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, this guy sold me a lemon. He knew this. Alternator comes on. I got low battery or something going on. Then it goes away. I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's just something got wet. I don't know how, because it was a nice sunny day when I was driving home. Kind of goes away. It comes back, right? I start tearing into it. I find out it's a harness. It's a real bear to get at inner fenders, all that stuff. That was the first problem. Then I get the diesel truck and I start, what was the next thing? I think I ended up having a booster leak on it. It seemed like what was really common with this truck, which was really weird, is that no matter every time I let somebody else drive this truck, I swear they come back with an engine light on. I'd let the wife drive it. I'd let employees drive it. They come back and they always be like, your engine light's on? I'm like, my engine light's on. I'm like, what the hell did you do? I'm like, yeah, 2-tracking with this thing? Like, what do you, and most of the time it was like, they were just going to Lowe's or, just doing something small, pulling a little trailer, nothing major. They weren't doing nothing they shouldn't be doing. And so I'm like, and I was like freaking out because every time this diesel truck, I don't really know how to work on it. I could do some basic things, but I can't do the real common things, or diagnosing and certain things. I don't have the certain tools. Well, anyways, time goes on. This truck ends up, it blows a head gasket. So I'm driving this truck, right? It starts puking out coolant out of the reservoir. Start doing research, do the old, barely Google back then, finding out, oh, this is kind of a common problem with this thing. So because they do the regen and all that. So I got a really, really bad taste in my mouth for the Ford, right? So I'm sitting there, and I'm looking up online. I'm thinking if I need a motor, I'm thinking about taking this place down to a special mechanic that's out of state and traveling and having a ship down there. All in the meanwhile, I got a truck payment, a big truck payment, and I got to pay full coverage insurance on this puppy. So I remember I finally found a local shop that I ended up trusting, right? And they were kind of hesitant. They ended up telling me, they're like, the guy that we really want to work on this, he only works part-time. He works at night on the evenings, and blah, 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 blah. Looking in hindsight, he was the right guy. I think his name is Willie, and he's a damn good mechanic. I tell you what, he's very thorough. but he's slow because he only works part-time. So he's only putting, 4 or 6 hours in, a night. So it's not like you're getting a full 8 hours out of him every day and he's working on it and he's got all the resources or whatever, it's just like, so I remember this truck, it was down for, I remember it was a month and a week. This truck was down out of service. And I tell you what, you buy a newer truck, right? This truck wasn't brand new. It was, probably at the time 4 or 5 years old, and it only had 160, yeah, it had 160,000 miles on it. And this truck has this problem, and then the guy told me, because I took it in first, and I said, Why is this thing puking out coolant?" And he's like, "Well, we've looked at it. We think it's a head gasket." I'm like, "No, it can't be no head gasket." I'm like, "This is a diesel." I'm like, "It's got to at least go, think in my head, like 250, 300,000 before it has any kind of major engine problems." Boy, was I wrong. So anyways, he kind of just shrugged his shoulders and goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, keep on driving it. See what it does." Okay. So I start driving it, right? I'm going to customers, embarrassing, right? I pull up to the customer, I'm pulling on the road, and the customer's out by the garage. "You can pull up here. There's room. I got the whole driveway." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. No worry, sir. No worry. The truck's dripping a little bit. I mean, this thing's leaking per stop a gallon of coolant. I mean, it's peeing out of this thing. I mean, I'm going down the highway. It's spraying so much. It's like it's coming up the windshield. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this can't be happening. I just bought this truck. This cannot be going on here." And so, sure enough, I take it back. I said, "Tear it apart." I got pictures of it. I should do a video with the pictures of it. And so it's all tore apart. Of course, that's the truck. They got to take the cab off. I mean, it looked like, I kept going in there about, every 2 or 3 days, and "Hey, how's my truck coming?" Because at the time I had it was like an 86 Chevy with like I don't know if it had a 305 or it had 350 in it, that I'm driving that. It's like my plow truck, right? We basically did a Bondo job on it and painted it. The wife painted it with a roller. Everybody liked it, honestly. I go so many places, people are like, "Man, that's a nice truck." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 not really. It's all bondled up." But people liked it, whatever. Well, anyways, I'm taking this truck, right? I ended up you guys probably never even heard of it. I should show you guys this too. It's who makes it? Easy Load, I think is what it's called. But anyways, you put it in the back of your truck with a forklift. It's a whole, um, like, it's got a ladder rack built to it. It's got tool bins built into it. It's got a rollout door. And I had it, of course, in my big, F, was that 2500? Yeah, it was a 250, F-250. That truck didn't mind it at all, but you put it in an old 86, Chevy half ton. Oh, boy, does she's a leaner. So I'm going to these customers and I'm parking around the corner. I'm embarrassed, man. I don't want people seeing this old jalopy, you know what I mean? And so I remember I was doing like details and stuff. I'd go to the customers and they'd be like, "Where's your vehicle?" "Oh, yeah, I was just working around the corner at the neighbor's house. I figured I'd walk. I need the exercise." "Oh, okay." You know what I mean? I was measuring up stuff. I pull in the sum and, "Oh yeah, it's a rental." I think I ended up, I think I even rented a truck. I don't know if I put the insert in it, but I ended up using like a U-Haul truck, like a pickup. And I used that for a little bit too. And that was always fun. I love pulling in with that because, boy, that sparked some conversation with customers. "U-Haul truck." Yeah. I mean, I was being honest, right? My truck's in the shop, so I need a rental. So I'm using this. And it worked. You know what I mean? The U-Hauls actually worked out pretty well sometimes too, because I had a lot of guys. Um, Back in the early days, I'd have some workers, and I remember like, they were just looking. They were just looking for a reason not to work that day, right? So they come in, right, and one guy come in, "Yeah, fan won't start. Guess I'm going home." And I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 no. No, no, no. Here, I got an account right down the road at U-Haul. Go down there, tell them you want a service van or whatever they got, box van. I don't care. Go down there and get one, and then pull all your tools out." And it's funny how things would kind of change. They would typically, kind of, "Well, maybe I can pull another vehicle up to it. I bet I could probably jump start it." "Oh, is that because you don't want to yank all the tools out and then you want to be responsible for what you, needing your vehicle. So when you go out there and you don't have the right stuff, and it's like, well, I told you to empty the van out or the truck, whatever you're using. What's the problem? It's always amazing how things change that way. So, you know, I'm not a I'm not faithful to just Chevy or Ford or anybody. I'm always just faithful to whatever I see not have to be in the shop. At the time when we ended up buying the Chevys, a lot of a lot of these vehicles have actually um, gone to this emission stuff where they're dropping cylinders. And boy, if you do any research, do your homework, do your homework. There's so many of these things that are having oil leading problems and lifter problems and cam problems. So it's really important to make sure you do your homework and try to go with, because every year is different. Some years they just had good runs and other years are bad runs. So you got to do your homework, and I'm the type of person I try to look forward to the future that it's like if I have to own this truck for, like things don't work out or the economy tanks out or we have the cough syndrome again, you can you bought something that's gonna hold up for the best, that you can think of at the time. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't think you guys got any questions? You guys can always let me know too. Tell me, say if you're a Chevy. Say I'm a Chevy boy or a Ford guy. Like I said, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. I'm gonna look this up, make sure everything's still working. But if you guys need any questions, like I said, or just hit the thumbs up, let me know audio's good because I might be just talking to a wall. I get people all the time that go, "Your audio, we can't hear you," and I'm like, "Why didn't you let me know? You should have." So I'll just double check this. Affordable. Make sure we're live. I should have already done this, but yeah, like I said, I just jumped on here for a second just to see how it was going. I ended up rendering a video. I just released it. It was a one that we did the loop because I had a guy. I couldn't even pronounce his name. This was on another paper here. I don't know. Is it Constantine? I think it was Constantine that might have asked that question, but I'm sorry, I butcher names. We'll go like this. Door. All right, there we go. It says we're live. I just always have to play around with these sometimes because sometimes your guys' what's weird about it is your comments don't show up. So no, I was really impressed with that whole like I said, with the brother-in-law and that Chevy. I was I was super impressed that for $800 and we had a motor swapped out. And like I said, if that diesel had to get tore apart, that truck was gosh, it was darn near 5 grand, and that what a kick in the teeth. I tell you what, when you think about when you have a truck payment, you got your insurance, you've been paying for it, and like I said, your truck's down a whole month in a week, and you're making payments, and you bought a newer truck, trying to avoid that, So that's why I typically now I really try. Doesn't always the cards don't always fall that way, and it's really weird if you guys are business owners. What I found out is a lot of times I always drive the crappy stuff because I've had the nicer stuff, but the guys need the better stuff because you need them to be, when you're paying guys good money, you need them to be productive, right? Because you only have that window from 8 to 5 that things can happen. So if their truck breaks down or they have problems, so you always try to make sure they got the best equipment. And I would always drive the crappy equipment because what I found out was that I can fix it. I'll figure it out. And I'm always on the alert for it. So I'm always trying to be proactive. When you're hearing things starting to rattle apart or the brakes are screeching or, the belt or something's going wonky on it. So, and then, right now gas prices have gone down a little bit, but I tell you what, if you're just starting out, I don't know if Josh watched it still. Josh he was doing like a Chevy Spark. That might be a little small, but I'm proud of him for, um, making it work. You know what I mean? You got to do what you got to do. But what those Ford Rangers, man, I tell you what, and what a cost savings, the money you can save on gas, and especially if you can just deal with the two-wheel drive. There's so many times, a lot of times I'd always keep normally like one 4x4 maybe in the fleet, when I was trying to stay more on the busier stuff. But honestly, looking at it now, I really don't even, it doesn't even bother me because typically it's like if you need four-wheel drive to probably get in there, it's probably not safe for you to go in there in the first place, especially on like construction sites and stuff like that. At least for me, at least for what we deal with. Some guys I get they're doing dump trailers, all that kind of stuff. They got to, but like I said, those Ford Rangers, man, those things were just tough as nails, especially the older ones. I think we had a like a 97, 96, and maybe no, we had a 2004 in there too, I believe. I think that was the last year they started making them, or 2006, and it was a little bit more modern. And man, those were just they were such great trucks. They were so cheap to maintain. They were small. We had nice little what do we have on? Nice little toppers that you could actually the doors folded. So I mean, you could reach pretty much in everything in the bed. The only thing that they didn't really, which now wouldn't be such a big deal because back then, of course, we were traveling too far, farther than we should have. And what it was is, it was a little crammed for sure, especially if you wanted to bring like a cooler. If the guys had two coolers, you could shove them in the back, but sometimes it's full of tools and stuff like that. It was just a little cramped, especially in the wintertime when you get the Carhartts and stuff on. It got a little tight. There's no doubt about it. But boy, I just tell you the simplicity of them. A nice hard rubber floor, easy to clean. Automatics is what I would do. We had what did we have? We had one that was a stick. I feel like we had two. I know we for sure had one. And with guys, especially when you're trying to bring in people, it was a real pain. You would because then guys would be like, "Oh, I don't know how to ride a stick." You know what I mean? And the thing is then "Oh, I got it," but then you leave, listen to them leave the building, right, the shop, and they're grinding gears, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, they're gonna blow the transmission out of that thing," So it's just stick with the automatics, and our ones they held up really well. They were great trucks. I don't know about the new ones. I'd like to know if anybody has any experience with them. Let me know. If you're using any new Ford Rangers, or maybe somebody out there's using a Ford Maverick, with that unibody. Maybe that probably does decent on gas. It'd be a cool. We got a company around here. It's a little ways away, but they actually use they still use a minivan, and that minivan. I mean, they got a ladder rack on it, and it's actually a reputable company that does a lot of commercial. They do all kinds. This must be kind of, I think, for the residential, as what I've seen, because I've seen them haul like 16x7s on there. And it's just cool watching it. It really is. It's just neat to see what people do. Um, but for us, like I said, we're not a big Ford or anything. And I don't know about any other, I thought about like those Dodge Sprinter vans, but I think they have problems. So I try to stick away from those Dodge Sprinter vans. And then I was going to purchase, I was close, a Ford, gosh, what is it? Their newer style transit van, but it's front wheel drive, which isn't the end of the world. But there was some issues I kept seeing, and I think they have the turbo in there, and I'm just a little bit nervous about going with the turbo. That turbo always kind of reminds me of a diesel, and that's you're ramming air down there. So I'm always looking for simplicity. I'd rather have just a bigger aspirated motor than I would with the turbos and that. And sometimes for you guys starting out, you really got to do the math. I sat down one time. We were traveling so much in the business that I was thinking about doing a Ford EcoBoost, and we end up doing the numbers, and it was like I had to do 100 miles more a day to make that truck economical for the business. So I think sometimes people get fixated on the whole like, oh my gosh, gas prices went up. So I got to buy this vehicle because this vehicle gets double the gas mileage. And you have to remember that you need to really sit down and do the math. That's the beautiful thing about math. Math doesn't lie if you do it correctly. And when we sat down that EcoBoost, it was like, and I was driving already quite a bit. I was driving way too far for the business. And we said, you know what, this doesn't make any financial sense to basically purchase this. We're going to have to pay higher insurance. Now we got a truck payment. Now we got to drive 100 miles more a day. So what are you supposed to do? Like, Oh, hey, honey, I gotta go put another 100 miles on me. This truck worth it today. So, hey, the kids just want to go for a joyride. I mean, that would make no sense, right? The tires and everything else, wear and tear, mileage. That's just silly. So it's like it didn't add up, to be correct. So, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. You gotta think smartly on it. Um, we had we had one. I still remember this guy, this mechanic, right? And this is the stuff that can kind of it gets annoying. It gets old. I had at one point we had, the wife at the time was doing kind of more of the finance, whatever. And I remember she tells me one day, this is like the beginning of the year. I think we're in, I don't know, March, maybe February. And she tells me, she goes, hey, she goes, I think we can afford a new vehicle. And I'm like, what? Why do you say that? And she tells me at the time, she goes, well, I mean, right now we, got over $10,000 in vehicle expenses, and at that time we're running, gosh, I don't remember how many vehicles we had, four or five service vehicles. And I'm like, "Phew," I'm like, we're already at 10 grand. She's like, yeah. I'm like, holy cow. So you start doing the math and it's like, all right, well, a truck payment is this, it's new. We ain't got to worry about it. It's a fixed, it should be under warranty. These aren't always the answers. There's always problems that come with this. So we end up purchasing a new vehicle. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about this. This is important. So let me get a gulp of water here. Where's it at? Thanks, Jeannie. So we purchased this new vehicle. It's a new van. It's a 2017. It's a GMC Savannah. Went with a 3500. 2500s are a little on the weak side for us sometimes. Sometimes. So we went with a 35. I think if I had my choice, I didn't really care. I was looking more for fuel economics. I figured that the guys didn't need a big super horsepower. It's probably going to cause more problems. They're going to get themselves in trouble, spin out, donuts, whatever. Wintertime, get in a crash. So we buy this, Savannah, the 3500 with a 4.8, I believe. It's got the V8, but it's a 4.8. It's the smallest V8 they make. So we buy this thing brand new, brand spanky new. I ended up getting, we had, I think it was through Wayne Dalton. We ended up getting I don't remember how, but we ended up getting a discount on it for being such a premier vendor type thing. I don't remember. It was GMC discount. So we ended up using that. I think that saved us, I can't remember how much, I don't know, 7 grand, something like that, 1,500. I can't remember. Anyways, we buy this brand new van, right? I'm going to get this baby all lettered up. Right. So I got this guy lined up. We get this thing wrapped, and it's up at his place, for about a week and a half, no more than 2 weeks. We get the van back, right? We took it down to a place that does all our bins and does our ladder rack and everything. So everything's on this truck. It's raring to go pretty much. Well, I ended up going up to the place to, they wrapped it, put all the vinyl stickers on it, driving it back. All of a sudden I get an alternator light on this thing. I'm like, dang, man. I'm like, what's going on here? This van's only got 300 miles on it. How can this be? You know what I mean? This is why I bought a brand new van, not to have these problems. So now, mind you, I'm driving it back. So I call up the dealership, right? And they're like, oh yeah, we something must be going on, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead and bring it in. All right. So it's like the next day or whatever. Cruising to the dealership. I get to an intersection, right? It's crossing like a 2-lane highway, we're crossing. So there's like double lights there. Light turns green, everything, right? We start taking off, right? I'm daydreaming. I mean, I'm just kind of in la la land or something, right? I look up. Holy crap. Everybody stop. I mean, slammed on their brakes, right? And I did the whole grab the steering wheel, slam on the brakes, right? The van does the tilt, and I'm like, oh man, nothing hit, right? As soon as that van tilted, right? What do I hear? Boom. Right in the back of me. I'm like, oh my gosh. You got to be kidding me that somebody just hit me. I mean, I just missed the person in front of me. I mean, by like a foot. You know what I mean? But I stopped my vehicle and somebody ran behind me and I'm like, God. Anyways, it's like a little Jetta, right? Jetta car. It's a nice car actually. It was clean. So I get out, do the normal, like, oh man, what happened? Whatever. I'm like, all right, well, hey, I'm gonna pull over in this parking lot because we're blocking traffic. So, anyways, I pull off, right, to go in the parking lot and sit. And I look at the Jetta guy, he can't start his car. Obviously, the impact did something, it disabled his car. He can't start it. So I'm like, I get over I'm just trying to get out of the road. Now we got to call the police, blah, blah, blah. Right. So, anyways, I pull over into that parking lot and I'm just sitting there going, oh my gosh, and I wasn't even mad about the vehicle itself in a sense. I was so upset to myself because I just got the van wrapped with all the wrap. I mean, everything that was paint on this is wrapped. And all I kept thinking is, oh my gosh, if he messed up the back doors, yeah, I got to get new doors. That sucks. And, but it wouldn't be really that big a deal if it was just a white van. It's a brand new van. They make white doors all the time. I get new doors. I got to go up there and then what is this going to turn into? I take this up there. The guy, oh, I can't match the wrap, or we can do our best, or it's going to be 4 weeks before I can get you in. So, now I got this van that's, partially wrapped. The back doors aren't, it looks goofy. You know what I mean? What do I do here? And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Well, thank goodness. When I hit the brakes, the van tilted. The guy ended up hitting the hitch. So it was the cheaper hitch. It wasn't the class, I don't know what they're, class 2, class 3, whatever. Anyways, he hits that, right? So he bends that hitch. I mean, the hitch is like, it's pretty jacked up. You ain't using it again. Let's just say that, the receiver. So I'm like, I just can't believe it, right? I'm out there. It's like I'm looking. I'm like, there's no damage on this nice chrome bumper. Oh my gosh, there's no damage. I can't believe this. This is amazing. Just this hitch. Oh, a hitch is easy. I got a buddy that does that. Shoots, $500 on the road. So, anyways, that's great, right? So now there's another little problem. At the time, we were getting this vehicle like transferred our name and we're transferring it to the business and all these things, right? So I got a plate on it that's not actually the correct plate. It goes with another vehicle, right? I just got it to basically transport it until we get the right title in the mail and in details, right? So I pull over in this parking lot and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, what do I do here? You know what I mean? And the thing is, it's a brand spanking new van. I mean, we literally are like just got paperwork. I mean, like it's not even in the van. So I'm calling the wife. I'm like, hey, I'm like, you need to get down here, and like, the police are going to be here soon, and I need proof of insurance. I need my stuff. You know what I mean? And she's like, okay, okay, whatever. Well, come. I got the wrong plate on this thing, and I'm just sweating bullets. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, the cops. He's gonna first. Oh man, hey, what's these plates? This plate doesn't match this vehicle. What's going on here? Is this a theft? Is this blah, 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 blah. Well, the vehicle that was following me, which at the time was my stepdad, it matches that vehicle, right? The plate on there will link to his vehicle is what it's doing. And so this is embarrassing telling you this. So I'm like, tell him, right? He pulls in, he's following me. He's like, oh man. I'm like, hey, I'm like, I can't explain all this to him at the moment, right? In the heat of the moment, right? So I'm like, hey man, park that van around the back, park it around the back. He's like, oh, okay. I'm like, park around the back. So he parks in the back, right? The cop comes in, the Jetta guy. I think he got his car running or something finally. So he pulls in, right? We're just sitting there and it's like, man, this sucks. It's like, this is too bad. And so the cop comes in and I'm like sweating, right? I'm sweating bullets because I'm like, he pulls right behind my stepdad. And I'm like, I'm like, if he runs this information and all he's got to do is literally look like this and just look at the van that my stepdad's driving. It's just a civilian vehicle, nothing fancy, right? If he looks over and goes, this says this plate number on this registration. What's the odds that it's on that vehicle that was not part of the accident? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have told him, park in the next parking lot. It never fails, right? And it was my fault 100%. You know what I mean? But luckily he never even came and looked. But he just started quizzing me, right? He kept asking me, he's like, so what happened? I mean, he was trying. He was trying. He's like, so you slammed on your brakes? And I'm like, well, yeah, I slammed on my brakes. I'm like, the car in front of me slammed on the brakes. I slammed on the brakes. I said, unfortunately, he was just the one that caught it that didn't have. So he basically got the ticket. It was a bummer for him. His car had, a lot more damage than mine. I mean, his hood, his bumper. I mean, a small car going up against a big van. It was a mess. So, anyways, that goes on, right? So now I take this brand new van into the dealership, right? It sits there for a day or something. I get a phone call and I'm just like, I bought this brand new van. I literally just got into an accident with it. I mean, it's like that whole thing. I always tell people, you ever notice, like, remember in school how you would like get brand new tennis shoes, right? And it's almost like you create this energy because you're so focused on it. Like, you're like, nobody step on my shoes. Nobody step on my shoes. Nobody step on my shoes. I even brought my gym shoes, so I don't have to wear my nice shoes. And you're like in the cafeteria and you're like in the lunch line, and all of a sudden, what's somebody do? Just out of nowhere, backs up. Boom. Right on your brand new shoes. You're like, how does this even happen? Like, I wear shoes every day and this hasn't happened in 3 months. And the one day I wear a set of brand new shoes, somebody backs up and just, I mean, a footprint on brand new shoes. You know what I mean? Like, how does this happen? And you're sitting there, licking, this can't be happening. Well, that's how this van was. It just got hit. Alternator light come on. I'm taking it back to the dealership. I get a call from the dealership. The dealership tells me, they go, yeah, yeah, it looks to seem to be that a mouse ate the wire. And I remember my uncle was there at the time, and I get off the phone with him or something, or he hears it and he's like, oh, he goes, you think, he says, by now, he says, they'd figure out to make those wires out of something that mice don't want to chew. And I was like, right on, brother, right on. But I did find out later, this is actually a few months ago, that some of this stuff is made out of soy, like it's cheaper for them. So some of these wires are being made out of like soy oils or whatever. So, that could be contributing why mice want to chew it, because it's basically like a food product or whatever. Anyways, I just didn't really think it was right. It really kind of ticked me off that they weren't covering it. It's a brand new vehicle, like I says, only got 300 miles on it. And so I'm like, hey, I go, I go, okay, okay, yep, 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 yep. And I go, well, how much? What is this? What is this looking like? He goes, well, we're talking, 600 and some change. And I'm like, to what? I'm like, no, no, no. I said, you know what? You just put it back together. I said, I'll have my mechanic. I said, which I had I got a mechanic I use. And I said, look, I'll have my mechanic look at it. I said, because that just sounds too expensive. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking, heck, an alternator at the time is $200, $300. And I'm thinking, they're not telling me it needs a harness, or it could be just a splice. Like, this doesn't sound good. You know what I mean? Oh, well, he says to me, let me talk to my service manager and get back, let me see if I can work something out. Anyways, it comes back. They come for like 300-400 bucks. They're going to fix it. Right. And I'm still not even like super happy with it. But at the moment, it's just like, you know what, for me to have to bring another worker, whoever it is, to come down there and pick this darn thing up, for me to have to go down back to my mechanic. And that's another thing I'll go into, to go back to my mechanic, which is a super nice dude. He's a great dude, to go down there, explain everything. And for him to, kind of scratch his head and go, well, yeah, well, I can get it in, but it's going to take me 2 or 3 days, because he's a busy guy, because he does good work and he does it at a very fair price. And he's a very honorable person. You know what? For whatever, 300-400 bucks, screw it. Whatever, man. Just take care of it. Just fix the darn thing, so I can have it the next day or whatever. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for these guys to use it, the workers or whoever it was going to go to at the time. I just want this thing. We're making payments on this puppy. I want this thing in action, man. I want this going around town. I want it showing off. I want it to look good. We're getting rid of an old. We had a couple rusted out beater vans that were running in, that were running into the ground. Like, I just want this thing to produce $1. Like, please, please go on the road and make money. You know what I mean? And don't cause me. I don't want to keep hearing all these, oh, well, hey, the van today, it's the muffler fell off. And it's like, oh my gosh. Okay. Yep. Not a problem. So another thing, when it comes down, so the one van that we basically retired, right? I start driving it. I'm just driving it kind of as a beater. And, it's funny because I remember it ended up, this was a Ford. What year was this? I think it was a 96 Ford F-250 or I think it's an E-250 Econoline, and this is just a preference too. When it comes to the doors, the side doors, I really don't like the sliding doors. I really don't. I just don't. They feel like they get, for us anyways, in our industry or the business, they get plugged up with screws and dirt and nuts and bolts. I mean, they always are getting jammed. They're not shutting right. They're not opening right. I like the swinging doors. I like the two swinging doors. I mean, those just seem to be what works the best for us. So, anyways, this van, right? I'm driving it. It needs some work. It's only, at the time, it's only a 4,000 van on a good day. This is before the old cough syndrome was going around. And so I remember, I take it into the shop that we do business. It's right across the street. It's not my normal mechanic, but I thought, hey, they do business with us. We should probably, return the offer and let's bring it over there. Well, at the time they were merging with a transmission place, and there was just some goofy stuff going on. I've heard shady things about them here and there. And I just thought, yeah, let's give them another shot. So I take the van over there, right? They call me up. And what I didn't like is they're not diagnosing the actual problem. They just want to do like a package, like it needs a tune up. So for $700, we'll do spark plugs, we'll do wires, we'll change your fuel filter. And I'm like, okay, but is that the problem? Like, I don't care about but is that going to solve the problem? So anyways, they do that. And then they're telling me it might be also, an intake leak. And it's just, this list is going on and on. So I put more money into it. I think I ended up putting like $1,200 because they called me back. It needs more, of course, like every mechanic, right? So it needs more. Well, it ends up, this truck was misfiring. And so when I took it to him, I said, look, I don't really have the time and anything to diagnose this misfire. I said, can you figure out the misfire? And that's when they did all the maintenance and stuff, this and that. Well, anyways, I get back there, I go to pick the truck up. They also want to do brakes. All brakes are grinding. I've been driving. I don't hear no brakes grinding. I know what brakes sound like when they're grinding, but I don't know, so, but they wanted too much. Everything was going to be like $3,200, $3,600 out the door. And I can't do that. I can't do that in this van. So I said, hey, look, I'll have to do it myself. So I go in there and I remember the lady making me feel really bad. She's like, you're the one driving the van that's dangerous. And I'm like, yeah, the same van I've been driving, and brakes are good. I mean, it stops good. I mean, I'm sorry that I can't afford your prices. Like, I'm sorry. Well, anyways, the owner guy comes out, right? I know him. He's a good dude personally. And he ended up telling me, he's like, yeah, he goes, whoever put that spark plug in, because this certain van model, the 5.4, was notorious for spitting out spark plugs. And I don't know how Ford ever screwed this up. How we went all these years with, building all these motors that we went from, then we get to this era that they're spitting out spark plugs. And then we went to the next era, the later ones or whatever. And now you can't get the darn spark plugs out. I don't know how this happens. So anyways, he says, yeah, we had to retap it, blah, 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 and the last guy that did it didn't do it correctly. My old mechanic, my mechanic I normally use. And I'm like, I don't know, whatever he did last time, it's lasted 5 years and I never had a misfire. And now I got a misfire. 5 years seems pretty good when it's not even for sure that was the problem. It could have been a wire, could have been a different cylinder, whatever. Right. So anyways, it's on a Friday, right? It's one of those, it's always on a Friday, it seems like. So I take the van back, I start driving it. I got some errands I got to run, right? Pick up some material, whatever. So I'm cruising down our main road by the shop. Next thing I know, all of a sudden, all I hear, I'm like, what the heck is that noise? I'm like, man, that sure sounds like a spark plug popped out. No. That can't be what's happened. What I mean? They just fixed this and they didn't had no problems with other ones, Huh. So of course, like I said, it's Friday, it's 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever. So what do I do on a Friday? Do I go to the bar? Do I go party? Do I, go sit at bonfires? No, I got the whatever you call it, the pig or whatever they call it inside there tore off, and then inside the cab, looking at this engine, trying to figure out where in the heck this noise is coming from. So I get started up. I find out it's that cylinder, and it was the one that was just redone. And this is where we come to business, right? Business owners. And I know there's a lot of different ways, but I like telling you these stories because these are where things can add up. So now I got to go in. I go into the wife, right? I do the walking back and forth on the floor, do the circles, right? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? She's like, her first thing kind of is like, take it back, take it back. It's their fault. I'm like, yeah, yeah. But here's the problem. Here's the problem, wife. If I take it back, I run a business. I know how this works. The guy, I don't want to say his name. The guy that owns the place is going to smack, right? He's going to smack the guy in the back of the head that put it in, the kid, the younger kid, probably, maybe a little older. I don't know. He's going to smack him back in and say, hey, man, you know that van you worked on last week? Yeah, that one. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? That spark plug you put in, spit it out. So this time, you make sure you put it in and it doesn't come out, And what's that guy going to do as a mechanic? Well, he's going to go in there and he's going to ram that spark plug back in there, right? He's going to break it off. He's going to cause more damage. I guarantee it. Guess I can't guarantee it, but that's my thought process. And I know how these guys are already operating. When it breaks off or we can't fix it. The reman's not working. We've tried because it's all tight spaces, right? That's why I don't want to work on this thing. It's all tight, man. I can't barely get in there. He's gonna break this thing, and then it's gonna turn into a phone call. Hey, we got some good news and we got some bad news. Yeah, we noticed your tank is still full of gas, so that's the good news, even though you paid for it. But the bad news is, yeah, we're gonna have to tear the heads off this, and if we do one, we might as well do both, or something's gonna turn into something. So he's gonna end up, it's gonna be $2,000 plus. I guarantee it. I just guarantee it. And I said, here's the thing. I said, I don't feel like I should take this back to him. I said, I feel like we should take this to our mechanic. He's a good dude. He's never, he's one of those guys. He always likes to call me and he goes, well, this is what, and I always told him, I said, dude, don't call me. I said, I believe in you. I trust you. Do whatever it takes. And I got the checkbook to pay for it. Don't worry about it. Just do whatever you think it needs and do it right. That's all I want. Because if you screw it up or we don't do it the right, ultimately I got to come back down there. And I started finding out with these vehicles that I was spending so much time going to the mechanic. The mechanic's a good dude, but every time down there is a 10-minute visit, just talking. You know what I mean? Hey, how's it going? How's this? How's that? How you doing? And you get the vehicle back, and it's not always their fault, right? Mechanic, even technicians, garage doors, whatever. We sometimes these things have ghosts in them that we just can't figure it out right then. And we're gonna have to come back 2 or 3 times. That's why I always tell people, I always say, hey, when it comes like gate operators are always a big one. I always go, well, I said, we got a problem here. And I said, we're going to be friends for 6 months. And they're kind of like, huh? And I go, yeah. So we're going to be friends for 6 months. And then for another 6 months, we won't even know each other. Might be for another year or 2 or 3. I said, and then a problem will come around. That's going to be a weird one. And then we're going to be friends for 6 months because we are going to have to communicate every piece of this. Anyways, I take it to him, right? What's he do? He literally breaks it off, right? He tries that recoil or whatever, the helicoil in it. He breaks it off. He calls me up. He goes, oh my gosh, man, I'm so sorry. What happened? He's telling me, I mean, you can just tell he's totally down on the phone. He goes, I feel like I let you down. He says, you brought it to me. You trust me. He goes, and I said, look, I said, dude, I said, it's all good. I said, things happen. I said, I just rather it happen on your watch because I trust you. And he goes, I'm gonna tear it apart. He goes, I'm gonna make it right. He says, I got to take the head off. And I mean, this dude, I got pictures of. I got to do a video of it sometime. He got this thing tore apart. I mean, the motor's sitting on the ground. I mean, he pushed the van out back because he needed the part still, and he had, he's only got like a 1 stall garage, maybe 2 on a good day. And I come in there, and I look at this thing, and I go, "Hey, man," I go, "Is this thing ever going to run again?" Oh yeah, we'll get it. It did. It ran great, and never had any problems with it. It still is a good, strong runner, even when I sold it. But what the beautiful part about the whole story was, the mechanic did it all for free. Did it all for free. I couldn't live with that. I think I got him like a $600 gift card or something like that. I just couldn't do it. I just, man, that's too gracious. I mean, that's the kind of people you want in your life. You know what I mean? I mean, somebody that will do that. And I mean, just to say, hey man, I messed up. That goes such a long ways. We all mess up. You know what I mean? Just to be honest about it and say, hey, I I screwed up, man. I got a problem. Where the other guy, I didn't care. I knew something happened. Well, this happened, this is just a part of owning a vehicle, blah, 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 blah. And it's, well, it's gonna be 2000. And then what am I gonna do? I'm at the mercy of them. What am I gonna do? Get it towed? I gotta get towed. Maybe they got a half tore apart. And I gotta bring it to the mechanic. And now he's like, what kind of can of worms do I got here? Hey, we're missing a box of nuts and bolts or something silly stuff. Ah, what does this say? What's old Mr. Ben say? I've had Chrysler products, had soy-based insulation and animals. Love it. Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That it just blows my mind that that's the unfortunately people don't care about the working man. They really don't. It's such a bummer, man. I like I said, I couldn't believe. And the thing was is that when this van was up there getting wrapped, the guy had a nice garage and he had a lot of room. Like the van sat in the middle while he worked on it. I mean, we're talking his building was huge. I mean, it was like 30 feet from any wall. And I mean, he had other stuff against the walls, a couple hot rods and stuff like that. I mean, it was a very clean garage. And I just saw a mouse decided to target my vehicle, which it could have happened. I'm not saying it can't happen. I just thought, I gotta bring, and I just thought the fact that the dealership just didn't go like, man, you know what? I mean, this is what happened. We're just gonna take care of it for you, but they're not in the business. I've learned that over the years. They're in there for making money. They're not there to, they ain't gonna do no free work. They got to pay mechanics, and I get it to a certain point. But I just thought, really, and I had no proof. I probably, if I would have had more time, it was one of those things. I didn't have no time. I was stretched for time. I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I should have went down there and said, "Can you show it to me? I want to see it." You know what I mean? Would have felt better. I still would have slept better even tonight with it. It says, oh, what did it say earlier about your choice make service vehicles? I have always been a GM. Love, yeah, you like the hat? Yeah, I got a couple of these at the time when I did. I got a couple for the workers, and they liked them too. They're really comfortable hats. I wouldn't even mind a couple more. I just haven't had the ambition to go back down and see. I think it was in Kentucky is where we went for the LS Fest, and it was really cool watching what people. I mean, they would take like junkyard motors, like the 4.8, and what they could produce with a stock motor that they're putting turbos and stuff on. It was amazing, but like I said, a lot of things are changing. I know General Motor. I think the newer stuff is having a lot of problems. I don't know. I would like to know. I haven't done much research. If the newer GMCs or Chevy, the 2500s or bigger trucks, if they're manipulating the, how do I say it? If they're manipulating like the fuel economy on them at all, like basically, are they doing that fuel management that the 1500s and all that are having the problems with that deactivation? Because I don't want nothing to do with deactivation. I just focus, camera, focus. Hello, this camera. I should have locked it in. I didn't, so it's doing its focus on its own. So yeah, I'd like to know about that. Think that business owners has so much. Ben, you always crack me up, man. You're such a, I love it. I think me and you would get along really well. I really do. I think that's funny, that's right. It says funny people think that business owners have so much free time. Yeah, right. Always working, thinking about working. It's amazing. I wish so many people in a nutshell, like I would love for everybody to be a business owner and especially have, 5 or 10 years of experience because I tell you what, I was one of them. You know what I mean? Like when I was an employee, like I remember going places, and they'd ask you those questions. You got reliable transportation? Yeah, I got reliable. What the? Yeah. Heck, my car breaks down. I got nice boots on. I'll run. I don't care. I need this job. What kind of asset would you be? What do you do? What do you think? This, blah, blah, all these questions, right? And then now that I've been on the other side, and when I've literally had guys that would show up to the shop, right? They walk in, hey, I see you guys sign out there, and I'm like, yeah, and I'd be like, what are you wearing? And they're like, sweatpants and flip flops. And by the way, I don't have a driver's license. It, it- we just don't hang around the yard all day here at the shop and, rake leaves. I mean, like, so now I got to have somebody be your babysitter. And then I got to have this ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? So it's just funny. And then the thing was, is like, I'd be so worn out. You come in, you sit down in the seat right at the shop, oh my gosh. And you're sitting there and you're still thinking, oh, I gotta get back to Jan, I gotta get back to Mary, I gotta get to her, I gotta get to this person, that guy, this, and then you're, oh my gosh, I'll do it tonight. I'll just do it tonight. And then everybody starts swarming in, right? The service vehicles guys, and they come in, oh man, that job didn't go as well as planned. Who detailed that one? Blah, blah, blah. What have you been doing all day? What have I been doing all day? You're going home right now. Shoot, I still got another 6 hours of work. You know what I mean? Just to make sure that job, oh, so that job didn't go so good. Well, tomorrow you got to go here. So it ain't going to don't even worry about it. I'll handle it tomorrow. Crap. I got to add that to my list. This list goes on, man. It's nuts. Thank you. Just got, what is out of a $2,700 turbo replacement. What you got here, Colton? Ooh, and my F-150 because I wanted a second opinion. Dealership I trust. Turbo was just, yeah, man. I tell you, these dealerships, you got to watch. They they just I don't know. It's really sad that I really don't hear. I will say with one, right? I've kind of turned into. I like Toyotas, right? I like Toyotas. I really do. I'm a Scotty Kimmler fan. I think Toyota makes a good product. And so, I put the wife in a minivan a while back, a long time ago. And I just honestly believe, look, the way I look at it is like, I want her to be in something that's reliable. I wanted something that would stand the test of time. I didn't know what was going to happen, if we are going to keep it or not keep it. And we decided to keep it. And it's just been I don't know what she's got now, probably 130,000 on it. It's been a flawless vehicle, just flawless. I think only one thing had a weird glitch at 60,000, maybe a water pump. But other than besides, brakes, oil changes, it's just been a phenomenal vehicle. I mean, just works like clockwork. And so I'd probably buy a Toyota truck if I could, but they don't really make a heavy duty enough one. Not to say you couldn't beef it up, but I wish they'd come out I don't think they have, that I know of, bigger service vans. And I wish they would. They're always kind of on the light end of stuff. You know what I mean? Where if you want heavy and built tough, you really got to go with like the Fords or the, GMCs or Chevys. Um, it's just been kind of and I like to go with kind of basic stuff. So that way, if something happens to my mechanic or it's not like something that's kind of foreign. But anyways, with the Toyota, we would take it to the dealership, right? That was always kind of her thing. It's like, hey, I don't want to touch your car. Like I got my own stuff to deal with. Just take it. And they've always had really good service for the most part. But they did, of course, they were doing the oil changes for a long time on it. Never had no problems. And they had a knucklehead in there, and he ended up not putting as much oil in as it should have. So she got darn near home and the oil leak came on and she freaked out. So she just drove it home, which was another, quarter mile down the road, and she shut it off and she explained it to him what happened. They were very nice, very generous. They ended up, I remember they called a tow truck company. They paid for it 100%, got it towed back to the dealership. They ended up giving her a rental car. And the weird part is like, they never called us back on it. Her vehicle. I'm like, how long does it take to do an oil change? Like, I'm like, are they doing other study? We had like the rental van for a whole week. I tell you what, you want to get hooked on something. They gave us a hybrid. I didn't really like how it sounded, but man, the car got phenomenal gas mileage. I remember I had a quarter tank of gas and I'm like, okay, I got to go up here and here and here. I got to do some service and some details. I'll take this van. You know what I mean? Why not? Right? Put the miles on it, on their van. And I mean, I couldn't believe I got all the way back home and I still had gas in the tank. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's amazing on gas. So it was a great experience. But unfortunately now kind of with oil change, I get my hands into it a little bit more than I want to. But I was watching I wish I knew his channel. I'd give him a shout out on it. He's a Toyota guy though. And he said when he worked at a dealership, it's just brown and slippery. And I went, I said, I don't like that. I can understand that too. It's just brown and slippery. So are they really using the best quality oil and stuff, and they always wanted her to do like the 10,000 mile oil change. And I told her, I said, you ain't doing 10,000 mile oil change. You're doing 5. I said, I always like to sit between 3 and 5 for oil changes. I said, you ain't doing no 10,000 miles. That's just too long. So I've been changing it for right now. What does it say? But that's cool, man. You got out of that Turbo, Mr. Colton. Good man. They will go never people like that. Yeah. They I hear the first part. Didn't hear the first part of the wiring. Yeah, the wiring was just like I said, mouse chewed it. My van only had 300 miles on it. Was kind of disappointed they didn't just cover it, but nope, 2,535 don't have. Oh yeah, what is this? What's a DO? What does a DOD stand for? Or AFM? Something I forget what those stand for. But that's cool. I'm glad. I'm glad they haven't done that. The only thing I hopefully with the 25s or the 35s. I mean, are they still just running the same? Like the 5.3 and the 6 liter? Is it basically the same motor from my era? Kind of stops with what is it? When I remember the most reliable ones was like the '05, I think '06, maybe '07. Those were like just man, those were built really good. Now we got a 2017. I think that one's creeping up to almost 100,000. I think it's only got 80,000 on it right now. And we do have the 5.4 that the captain drives. So and I think he's over 100 on his now because that was a used van. We ended up getting a really good deal on that. It was a guy that used to clean chimneys. Van was disgusting when we bought it, but it's been so far. Knock on wood, it's been pretty good. So we kind of dealt with that. I think we got that Chevy Express. I think that one's a 3,500. I think that's got a one step up motor. I think that's a 5.3 in it, and so far that's been running pretty good. I don't know how many miles that's got in there. I never see that van much. The technician either sometimes he either has it, it's either out or takes it home, or I don't see it that often. So, but no complaints, but that's nice that at least, the emissions slash government hasn't caught up with some of the bigger vehicles that they're, making them. Cause, a lot of times that's what this stuff comes down to is it gets, you know, government comes out, we want new EPA standards or whatever they do, and then the manufacturers have to re-engineer something, and it's like, oh, it drives me nuts because I'm always like, if you have something good, just please leave it alone. Let's rock out 10, 20, 30 years plus if we can out of it without changing it, and it's kind of like when you guys took my ATS away from me. I was an ATS fanboy. I like my LiftMaster ATS mechanical limits, and then they said, "Oh no, we're going to the ATSW," and I'm like, "You sons of I don't want this. I need this for my Amish." Because I trusted it every time I unplugged it. They're like, if I plug that back in, is it going to still work? Yes, it will. I already set the limits. I even set it on a generator. It's going to work just fine. Not anymore. Displacement on demand. Oh, active fuel manager. Perfect. Man, you're a smart man, Ben. Yeah, I knew it standing for something. I can't remember. I watched a lot of videos on them. I just don't know. I don't pay attention to terminology. It's kind of not my aura. So but anytime man, they've been having all kinds of problems. I was almost gonna, I don't even remember what I was gonna buy it for. If it was a plow truck. I think I was gonna buy it for a plow truck or personal truck and then use it so I could plow the shop. And I ended up, it was a Dodge 2,500 something. I think it was a 2017 ish. And I started watching a lot of videos and they were talking about how these cams, the rollers, the lifters are turning sideways and it's wiping out and I was like, nah, I'm good. Like I was watching guys do rebuilds on them. And I said, I'm good, man. Like I'm not, I just, I'm not a bank, man. I don't got all kinds of money where I can, you know, have this kind of problem where I got a truck payment on this thing and I got full coverage insurance on this thing. And that, it just, the list goes on. It's like, I can't afford that. You know what I mean? I already dealt with that 6 liter, that 6.4. And then, you come to find out, I met the builder through the 6.4 because he was at a gas station and anybody I knew that had a 6.4, I didn't do my due diligence before I bought it. Right. I just bought it because, it's a diesel. So it should last forever. And, and I came off probably the 7.3. 7.3s were always good motors through the Fords, the diesels. And so I walked up to this guy one time and I'm like, hey, how do you like your 6.4? And he's like, hate it. I'm like, huh? I wasn't expecting it. He goes, nope. He goes, this is like the second motor in it. He's like, it was covered in warranty. The other one blew up. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, I just like bought one like 3 months ago. And he's like, oh man. He's like, I'm telling you, I'd sell it right away. And I'm like, oh, you must have just had a lemon. It must just be you. Yeah, it's just you. Mine's good. No, mine wasn't good. Like I said, I had all the common problems. They had the regen on it, which was a horrible way of doing it. They dumped fuel in the back cylinder, so those were known for washing out. So the truck was also known for oil dilution for fuel getting past those piston rings, and then people are talking about the oil growing in the motor. I mean, like you check your dipstick, and it's like, holy crap, it's up 2 inches on the dipstick. What the hell is going on here? And so that was a problem. Luckily, I didn't blow any cylinders out, but I remember, I had the radiator problem, which was a common problem. I mean, this thing just, like I said, the check engine light. I remember I took it north to our trailer one time, the EGR cooler, I think it was, started like all of a sudden, undoing the gate, right? The string across, whatever chain. And I look over by the fender and I'm like, why is the truck dripping green stuff on it? What's going? And I'm like, are you serious? This truck literally just like, I'm pretty far away, and I'm like, this thing is leaking coolant right now. It has to do it right now. I'm thinking, gosh, what else is gonna? So I did like a delete on it. I remember when I tore off the intake, um, I ended up there was so much soot in that intake, it made me want to cry because it was just packed. And I mean, your first instinct is like, oh my gosh, this is the fresh air. This is what it sucks in. It's like first thing you want to do is start taking a screwdriver and like a shop vac. And it's like, oh no, 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 no. I'm not gonna do that. Because you're not going to get it all, or something's going to be loose from what you're doing, and then it's going to get sucked in the motor. And of course, then it's just like sandpaper, and then you're wiping out the motor or whatever. It was just heartbreaking. And so I started learning because I started working at a bus garage, when I do garage doors, and one of the mechanics there knew me kind of personally. And I'm like, what do you think about these motors? And I remember the first thing he told me, he goes, oh, he goes, these new diesels. He goes, you know what you do? He says, you go in the back, he says, where the tailpipe is. He says, you run a hose and put it in the intake. He says, because that's basically what they're doing. And I'm like, really? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, with all these emissions, they're just trying to recycle the exhaust. He's like, so all that soot and everything, you just put it right back through your motor. And I'm like, holy crap. So that really turned me off on a lot of these newer diesels. And they're going after a lot of these guys, that are doing, I think there was somebody else, was it Washington or it's not Washington, New York or something like that. And he was selling it, and then he had deletes on it, and they wanted him to crush the vehicle. I think he ended up doing it. I don't know if he did it for like views or anything like that, but I just remember that he had a lot of hard time with it. And I just thought that's horrible, man. And the missions, I always love the military, which I get to some degree. The military vehicles don't have this stuff on it, which I get. We need their stuff to be reliable and stuff, but it irks me because the blue collared man like myself, I can't afford this. You know what I mean? And you're trying to buy something, and the truck isn't what you think. So the 6.4 was a bridge motor. That's what I was trying to get at. And I remember I talked to a guy. We were up at the dunes, and he came off the dunes or something. I was just walking around chilling. And I said, hey, man, I said, how you like that truck? And he goes, man, it's got problems, this and that. He goes, but he goes, these were bridge motors. And I remember it's one of those things. Remember, kids, always ask. That's why you're more than free to always come on here, ask any questions. But I thought, why does he say it's a bridge motor? Like that does, what does a bridge motor mean? What is he? I was like, what do you mean by a bridge motor? And he goes, well, Ford had problems. They had the 6 liter, and they had all those problems and those lawsuits and stuff, which they did. I mean, Bill Hewitt was one of the guys from powerstrokehelp.com that passed away. Rest in peace, Bill. He explained a lot about the problems that they had and how they could be remedied, but ambulances were horrible because ambulances do a lot of idling, and these diesels don't like to idle with all this emissions on them. So anyways, he goes, well, they had the 6 liter, and he says they had such a bad rap with it. They needed a bridge motor until they got the new 6.7 out there. And I was like, boy, this guy makes a lot of sense, doesn't he? So he ended up, he said it was a bridge motor. That's why they only built it for 2 or 3 years. I can't remember. He says it was just to get them by for the emissions that were coming out. And now Ford started building their own 6.7 in house, which I've heard is a better motor, but I also hear, I don't remember what years. I think the 2012 had turbos problems. And then I hear something about leaking now, the oil pan, and you got to like lift the motor up or something. So either way, I don't plan on looking at one because my pocketbook is not that deep and they sound expensive. And anytime I've always gone into the bigger diesel trucks, it just never adds up for me because either fuel is wonky. It used to always be diesel is cheaper, but it's never cheaper now anymore for our area. And for, if I did towing every day, if I was like a hot shot or something, or I had cattle or, I would do it in a heartbeat. But the gassers, they've been fine. You know what I mean? Get a 6 liter or something, they've been fine. They're doggy. There's no doubt about it, but they get the job done and they're workhorses and they're cheap to repair. That's the big thing. Cheap to repair. And typically anybody can work on them. Parts are readily available. So that's always really nice. Um, so I try to stick with the standard stuff, you know what I mean, for the most part. But I still miss my Ford Rangers. You know what I mean? Those were, man, those were good gas savers. I literally one time, it's kind of funny. Um, when gas prices went skyrocketing, this is how, I don't know, this is how stupid I am sometimes. But I remember I bought a motorcycle, bought a little Ninja, and it wasn't a full crotch rocket. It was only like I think it was like a Ninja 250, so it was considered a sport bike. So you semi sat forward. And I remember I got this hookup. I went and looked at it. I was so excited because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this thing's going to save me on so much gas. And I remember when I first got it, I already had a detail I had to go do for Lowe's, and it was quite a ways away. We were, like I said, traveling too far. And so I ended up taking this bike, right? Well, Michigan just came out where we don't have to wear a helmet anymore. So I'm like, I'm good. Like I don't have a helmet. Like, yeah, whatever, man, which is stupid, by the way. You should wear a helmet. And I'm like, I don't got a helmet right now. I'm gonna go buy one because I knew I didn't like the wind. So I remember I took a trailer, I pick it up, right? I parked down at the gas station. I hop on this bike. I tell the cashier there or whatever. I said, hey, I said, is it cool I leave my truck here? I said, it's not running right. I said, I'm gonna, I got a motorcycle. And she's like, sweetheart, just go ahead, leave it there. I don't care. I mean, just, come get it at nighttime or something. Not a problem. So I remember I go up there and I start cruising down the main road here, which is Apple for us, the main drag, right? I start jumping on this bike. I'm all like, heck yeah, man, I'm going to save all this gas. And I'm like, cause gas is like $4 and something. It's over $4. And so I remember I start cruising down the road and all of a sudden I'm feeling the wind. Right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was in such a rush because I had to get up to this detail and I was trying to get up there before dark. I'm driving a motorcycle that I don't really know. I just bought it. It's used. And I cruising down the road and the wind's hitting me. And all of a sudden I realize, oh my gosh, I don't have no safety glasses. Holy crap. What if a bug hits me in the eye? I'm going to be blind. So my first instinct is like, holy crap, I got to find a gas station that sells some glasses, right? So I'm like, all right, there's one down the road. So I go down the road and I end up, stopping at this gas station. And I remember, we'll see you, Ben. And thanks for hanging around. And so I go to this gas station. I go in there. Of course, you think anybody sells like safety glasses at a gas station? Hell no. It's all sunglasses, right? And I'm like, well, I gotta do something, man, because I can't have something hit me in the eye. I mean, I'm already like driving behind cars. I can feel like just pelted like sand hit me. So I buy these sunglasses. I'm like, this is a bad choice because it's getting dark. It's starting to, it's dusk. It's starting to, the sun's going down. I'm like, I gotta do something. So I find the lightest shade ones, put them on, right? I hit the road again, man. I'm just hauling, trying to get up there, just doing all kinds of weird, just, man, I tell you what, the things I've been through. So I get up there, I do the detail, I whip through it real quick. I show up because all the time, all you need for a detail is all you need is a paper and pen and the paperwork, right? To fill out, and it just ask you questions, 12-inch radius, is the floor level, do you need extra this or that? Yes or no? Is there an opener, present or outlet, whatever. Anyways, I get done. I hop back on that bike. I start cruising back. And oh my gosh, I tell you what, I learned really quickly that with hills, how cold air sinks because it got cold really fast, and I wasn't dressed for it. I had like a t-shirt on. During the day it's summertime, it's hot. So I start going down those hills, man. I'm like, my mouth is chattering because I'm so freezing. I'm getting to the point my hands aren't even functioning. Like I literally have to like put my hand down by the motor, the muffler, just to heat my hand back up. I'm just rotating, as I can. I'm trying to lock in the throttle. I mean, it was a nightmare. And I kept this going for quite a while, maybe almost 6 months, maybe or so. I had this motorcycle, and I found out that um, having a motorcycle was not a smart idea because you're better off doing a little tiny car or a little pickup truck or whatever is a gas saver because this thing was it just it was no good because it never failed. I get a customer, right? And I don't and technology wasn't that good. Like we didn't have like the whole Google Earth or where you could zoom in or you just seen like a map is all you'd see. It'd tell you the route to take or whatever, but it wouldn't tell you like, hey, that's a dirt road or anything. And so I get going there and I get close, right? And I got a mile or something I got to go down a dirt road on a motorcycle. Oh my gosh, man. Just, thinking you're going to roll it over, tip it over. It was, it just was not working. You know what I mean? And then the weather would change on you. And I remember times just riding in the rain. You know what I mean? I'd have to always make sure I had like a backpack and then my paperwork would have to go in a Ziploc bag or something. You know what I mean? Because I had to anticipate because up here in Michigan, man, I tell you what, we don't know what the weather. You give it 5 minutes, it could be snow. Another 5 minutes, it's sunny. Another 5 minutes, it's downpour, torrential hurricane rain. You just never know around here. And so it was just one of those things in my life that I just looking back, I kind of shake my head and go, that was stupid. Why did I do that? You know what I mean? But you just do what you got to do sometimes. You make do. I didn't have an economical gas saver at the time, so it was kind of that was my best bet. I thought, I'll buy a motorcycle. I think I paid like $2,500 for it. And I thought, oh, this will be great. I'll just this will save so much. It would be more profitable because typically in the garage door business, the only way I've ever seen it is you kind of got two options. Either you raise your prices or you got to become more efficient. I mean, yes, you could probably try to get cheaper product, but you can only go so far, right? The vendors aren't going to give it to you for, 50% off. So you become a little more efficient. But like I said, the big thing, like I always tell you guys, you got to watch the traveling. The traveling will kill you. It'll eat you up. You know what I mean? And that's why, when I started realizing that instead of taking those long, instead of working out of being desperate and just saying no from the get-go was so much more beneficial than taking the job. You go out and do the job, you detail it, whatever, you commit to it, and then you get a job. It just seemed like it never fails. You get a job that's closer to home, and then you end up you're struggling with this job that's far away. You're having all kinds of issues. It's so much better. And if you're in a denser area, then you have more opportunities too. I think you have more, um, because a lot of places around here, when you go out rural, there's maybe one, and I think they do okay. You know what I mean? But they typically they don't scale out and they got to travel. You know what I mean? And I look at the travel as like I had to just travel the other day. I'm gonna have a video come out that I ended up doing the photo eyes for, and that's only like 15-20 minutes away. And I did a lot of preparation on it and I ran into some problems. And you'll see. I dropped a screw, couldn't find the screw. It's a special screw. So I had to put a mayday out. And luckily I ended up finding the screw after doing a lot of digging through rocks. And then I thought I was missing a cover from the customer that I had no anticipation that was going to be gone. Come to find out, I found another one, but it was one of those things I was not anticipating. So it's just like every time you touch a job, I just talked to Captain about this the other day, maybe about a week ago, and he tells me, he goes, well, he's got a customer, he's got one that's far away, and he charges them a lot. I don't even know how he gets away with it, and they pay it, right? They just pay it. But I'm like, I said, is this really worth it? And he goes, well, he goes, to tell you what, he goes, they did call me on Christmas Eve. And I'm like, and he goes, well, they called like 3 or 4 times. They finally left a voicemail, text me, and he goes, I had to reply. And he got away with it because he ended up getting a hold of the customer, um, not the owner of the building or whatever, but the customer, and he walked them through what to do, and they ended up figuring out. But they said when the owner called, they exhausted all options, and he said, "Let me talk to the customer. They're there on site. I can walk them through it." And he got lucky for that. Now, it's one of those things. It's one of those gray areas, right? So this customer is far away. You can't just hop in a vehicle and go there in 10 minutes and look at it and figure it out, right? So what I'm always trying to get at is you're opening the door to more liability, more problems that are farther away. You know what I mean? And sometimes, don't get me wrong, you gotta do what you gotta do. You know what I mean? I've been there, I've done it all. But if you could be closer, that wouldn't be such a threat, right? But when it's far away, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If we can't figure this out, and for us up here and we're the old Michiganders, you don't know. You don't know because one day it's sunny and dry roads, next day it's a blizzard. So you got all these variables. And that's why, if you can stay close, stay close to home, stay close to the shop, whatever it might be, it's a lot nicer. Let me just tell you that. That's one thing it took me a long time to figure out. It's a lot nicer. But I understand when you're starting out, you gotta do, but you also gotta remember you gotta start focusing more on advertising. You gotta work on the word of mouth. You gotta come up with creative ideas. There's ways to do it. But if you think, oh, that's gonna be my job, and oh, they're calling, so I'm gonna go out there. It's like one guy told me one time, one of the vendors, he always told me, he says, if they and I think this plays a part. You could probably change this into garage doors too. But he says if they live more than 45 minutes away, they normally don't last. And he was talking about for employment. And I think there is some truth to that. And I think with, like, if I had to say for us, 45 minutes is maybe tops that we would travel one way for a customer. Rather be in more of the 15, 20-minute range, which is where we sit most of the time. But there's a few stragglers out there. And it just, you don't realize how that stuff adds up over time. It really, it can be, it's a hidden tax, I'm telling you. You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden one day when and it all comes in at once, right? The drivetrain's doing something, the brakes are squealing, you're all of a sudden you're like, holy crap. And then you're going, I gotta drive this far to try to make this work. My trailer's on its last leg. It's about ready to blow a bearing off, or an axle, because it's just been driven to death because you had to take it out to that customer because you didn't know if they had one or didn't have one. We run into all those situations. So, anywho, you guys got any questions out there? What are you guys thinking? So I still like that. Cool. I gotta read it. Just out of 27 turbo replacement. I wanted to second opinion from another dealership. I trust turbo was just, yeah, turbo, man. That drives me nuts. You don't ever know. Like I said, when it comes to those dealerships. But no, I wanted to jump out here just to say hello to everybody. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I'm ready. I'm ready. I like full weeks. I know I'm weird. I like full weeks. I like the holidays. It's nice to see everybody in this and that too. But I like full weeks, man. I still got the PTSD from the short weeks because when you're in business, yeah, short weeks are like sucky weeks because it's almost like you leave more time for things to break. Like, I never understood this one time until my one buddy that did garage doors, he passed away. But he always told me, he says, you think about it, like on the weekends, he says, you got 2 days now, 2 days. He says that stuff can go wrong. He says that's when everybody's using their lawnmowers and their tractors and their snow blowers, whatever it is. And he says, you got those 2 days for things to break. And that's why Monday, all of a sudden you'll get whacked. You know what I mean? And he was right with that. I started playing it. That's how I used to kind of schedule the week, is I'd leave Monday somewhat open, because I knew there was stuff coming over the weekend, and then I'd have some filler and, shoot for like noon, where nobody calls. All right, we're gonna, or have it scheduled where you do your early stuff and then you get the afternoon, a few, pickups, like customers that call in, broken spring type of thing. Cause that typically seemed like that was always the case. Mondays and Fridays were always busy for us. Um, Fridays was always like last minute people, you know what I mean? Or you had something that was done Thursday that didn't quite go as well. So you have to follow up on Friday to finish it off. And plus, I never liked having to put a lot of pressure on the guys. Friday was always kind of like the day I would end up, that's like kind of like the clean up the truck. A lot of people they're all thinking about the weekend, what they're going to do. They're not even in the right frame of mind for the most part. They're kind of in la la land. So it's kind of, where I always left it. Let's see what Mr. Tanner. Thanks for the video, Chevy guy through and through. Ooh, Chevy guy. I haven't. Oh, Duramax. Ooh, I think the '06 wasn't that a good year? I think those were good years still. And I was actually looking for my new vehicle for door outfit to dedicate fully to my business in Northwest. Was it Iowa? I'm covered up here. I can't see it at the corner there. Um, I don't know. Like I said, with those, I'm still, I'm still a service van guy. I see guys drive trucks, and the only reason I would ever go back to a truck is because if I had to do it, because I have to take phone calls. But I tell you what, if I have the option, I'm gonna dump that phone as fast as I can because you can't do the right job on the phone on the road. You just can't. I mean, it's in Michigan, they just changed the law. You can't even be on the phone. If they see you, it's automatic ticket, blah, blah, blah. It's got to be hands free. Yeah, you can use headsets and stuff, but man, I tell you what, I've tried it all. I've tried the headsets. I've tried paying a service that was a internet base and it would glitch out and the customer would get frustrated. You always need somebody that's dedicated to it. You know what I mean? As soon as you can. I understand when you're first starting out, you can't afford that. You got to, so I'll tell you a little secret. In my other businesses, my phone is always off. I tell all these guys, I get a lot of you guys, I get my number and some of the guys just call me. And I finally like after two or three times, I'm like, hey, I'm like, you can't just call me. And they're like, oh, I just, and everybody's really nice. You're all real nice guys. But I'm like, I never answer my phone. My phone is always on silent. The only way I answer my phone is if I know you're going to call me at a certain time or like, hey, I'm going to call you in 10 minutes. So that's when I'll turn my phone on so I can hear it. Or I give people blocks of windows and I say, hey, I'm from noon to 1. I'm open. Give me a call. You know what I mean? Because believe it or not, I'm busy. I mean, like I'm doing emails and I got paperwork. So I got a lot of stuff always going. So it's just, and I don't like being in front of customers or I don't like being at the bank. I don't like being in front of people that all of a sudden my phone's ringing. I'm like, and they're like, you can take that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like that's rude. You know what I mean? Like you have my attention and I like giving people my attention. Cause I just think that's respectful. I had that with customers a lot when I was in the field, especially when I was doing the business, answering as a secretary. And that was a real pain in the butt because, you know, I don't want to turn the phone down, but it's also like, you got a customer in front of you too. So it's, and then people always got some long conversation. So it's never like it can be like a 2-minute thing. So change your email or not your email, but change your voicemail. Let them know. You can have them, text you or whatever the information sometimes, but it's really better to have somebody answer the phone. Anyways, so the service vans, I love service vans. When I first kind of started out, I was kind of that guy. I just, I don't know, you know how it is. You're young, whatever, you're cocky. I need a truck. I need a truck. I need a truck. And I've done them all. I've done 4-door trucks. I've done 2-door trucks. I've done long beds, short beds. And like when I had my Power Stroke, my 6.4, the insert I had into it, even when I didn't have the insert, I don't know what goes on with these trucks, but it's like a freaking vortex in there and everything wants to fly off, right? I had a ladder one time that flew out of the back of it. It was in the back. It was leaning and the wind blew it and it sucked it out of the back of the truck. I remember I was on a highway, busy highway that day. Of course, it's like one of those, like a Friday. I watched it go out. The guy next to me, he's looking in the mirror, right? And he's like, I see it. I see it. And he goes, I go, crap, man. And of course, on our highways, they got cables all down. So there's nowhere to turn around. I can't even go in the median and turn around or anything. And I don't even know if I want to. The traffic is just enormous. And he's like, it's gone. He's like, don't even turn around. And I'm like, what do you mean it's gone? He goes, I just seen a semi crank it. And he goes, it just went. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, are you serious? This just happened? I'm like, that's not good. I'm like, is it going to catch up to me? Is this going to be a ticket? Is this, this could have caused an accident. Somebody could have got killed. And it just seemed like every time I was dealing with this thing, these trucks, everything was always there flying off. I had angle iron one time come out of a tube, which isn't really I guess a truck's fault. I mean, it was just, I didn't have the cap on right. It blew through. I remember, it just, the height of it, um, especially when you start getting older. You know what I mean? When you're young, you're not thinking about your joints, your back, your knees. As you get older, and especially in Michigan, we have the elements. I remember this one time I was with my stepdad, right? And this is it's kind of one of those things when you get into like employees. This guy, I had this brand new customer. He has a big resort around here. And I'm just like so excited, so proud that I'm going to be doing a garage door for this place. And this cat left me hanging, right? I'm going in. I'm like asking the secretary, where is he at? Where is he at? I don't know. I don't know. This guy doesn't show up. I literally got to call my stepdad. Bless his heart. He comes over right away. It's a blizzard out that day. We got a storm coming in. We're out there. I remember on top of our tippy toes trying to get these sections on top of this truck. And, mind you, my stepdad's older, right? And I'm not like 7 foot tall either. I'm only, what am I, 5 something, 5'9". I mean, we're trying to put these door sections on top of this truck. I mean, the wind's blowing. We're literally skating across the parking lot because everything's frozen, right? We just had a rain, it froze. And I just thought, this is stupid. Like, this is absolutely stupid. We're trying to get these sections on top of the door or on top of the truck. The truck's up way too high. And so we get it, whatever, strap it down. We hook up to a scissor lift. We start heading up there. Freaking nightmare, man. Just a freaking nightmare. With a van, right? Everything's by your gut. So you can darn near do it as a one man if you need to. You can shove everything in the back. They're noisy. Don't get me wrong. They don't heat up the best, but our vans do the job. And what I like about it is you can get out of the elements because we do a lot of other things. We do gates, we do, the doors, we do the access controls. You have somewhere to go in there. Like when I had a truck, you can sit in the front seat, right? But who wants to sit in the front seat with a gearbox or something that's, puking out something, grease, you know what I mean? If you got to go to the bathroom, a knee in a bucket or a jug, works pretty good in a van. And if you got one that doesn't have windows or anything, you got a lot of privacy. Done that a few times at a customer's, right? Don't want to go and use their bathroom, or they're not home. They lock the house. Man, I gotta go. I gotta go. We got a ton of neighbors around. I gotta go. Jump in the back, do your thing. The end of the job was always the best part because the van, you get them to the job. It's a hot day. You're freezing, whatever it is, right? Shove this shit in the back of the van and let's go. All I know is I want to go home. It's 6 o'clock on Friday night. And I'm done screwing with this stuff. This job already went south. You throw the crap in the van, you shut the doors, and you hit the gas, baby. And you can go 60 miles an hour without nothing flying out and getting pulled over by a cop or having somebody pull up next to you and they're getting your number, because I've had that happen, where they get your number and they call and you're the one that's answering because you're the secretary and you're doing everything, right? And they're like, I don't know if you're the one driving this van or not, or this truck, but something just flew out and you're polluting the earth, and you're like, go shove it up your whatever. I get a little riled up on that stuff. So the truck's over nice for 4-wheel drive if you needed that. That's always a good thing. Door, vehicles, and how I like vans. Yeah, let's see here. What else you got? Best decision ever made. Can't think enough about hype up the vans. Oh man, yeah, the vans. Made. Yeah, well, that's cool. So you got the van, you got the truck. Did you get the truck wrapped or the van? I'm just wondering what it says. Conversation price, Duramax, best investment I made. Yeah, those certain year Duramaxes were really good trucks. I know tools and ladders. Let's see what your next one said. Materials in the van, ladder rack, panels. Yeah, it's the vans for me, like I said, it came down to be a no-brainer. The vans you think about, they're two-wheel drive. So they're a lot cheaper than having all the mechanical parts, the 4-wheel drive and that. And don't get me wrong, I used to think, oh, I need it, and there was certain times that if I knew I was going to get into a situation, I always had either kind of my personal truck or, I had a 4-wheel drive typically in the fleet, but for the most part, for a lot of these jobs we go up to and stuff, didn't even need it because they normally have a petty bowl in there, because they're workers, especially if it's like new construction commercial, they got to have a way to get their stuff in and out. So normally you can work with the builder, and typically everybody's kind of the same team. So they'll fork in your scissor lift. The best way to do it too is if they will leave you a scissor lift in there that you can just use, because hey, that's the best way to roll, man. Because now you ain't got all that wear and tear on your scissor lift, because scissor lifts are expensive, and scissor lifts they're very touchy. You can get sued on them many different ways. They're a very big liability. A lot of these companies too, nowadays will make it's got to be inspected. It's got to be up to certifications. So they can add up a lot, where if you just, hey, either rent it, it's to get it delivered, whatever, hey, say la vie. Every situation is different. It's just whatever works for you. You know, the one thing I have been thinking, this isn't like this isn't to like bash anybody, because I did it, right? I've done it. I got Wrapped fans and all that. But I do look at it, and I think I might do it differently, because it's kind of hard to say. Now that we have establishment, I get a few people that always, hey, I like that, blah blah. They do protect the paint a little bit, but when we had the cough syndrome, that's what gets me. If we have another cough syndrome go around, the thing that started with a C, if we have another one that goes around, we still got one actually service van that's unmarked, and the convenience of that quickness, because when that stuff happened, we had a guy that, um, I remember he ended up, guy who used to work here. He was so gun ho about, like, he was anti everything. I don't give a rat's. I'm going to go out, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, slow down, slow down, slow down. I'm like, you got to remember, man, it's not the problem isn't you. Like, I'm okay. You can go out there and do what you got to do, and you got to replace the little old lady's garage door, but it's the neighbors. That's the problem. Because I'm watching on social media at the time. I'm watching everybody like, I don't understand why R&R landscaping is dropping off bark at Mrs. Jones. I don't understand, and it's like, kind of even a left-wing guy that I know, he explained it to me. He goes, I don't really understand the problem. He says, if you're dropping, so you can pay for it with a credit card over the phone. The guy shows up in a truck. He dumps it in your driveway. You don't even have to interact. And then he drives away. You come out with a wheelbarrow on your own property, and you do what you got to do. And I'm like, exactly. I'm like, that's exactly a very good point, but somebody's out there that closed their business, is upset about it, that they're not out there working and providing and stuff. And so even when I had a guy doing one of the rentals, he was doing drywall, and I met up with him a little bit later, and he had a nice, really nice blacked out 4-wheel drive, nice GMC truck, just a beautiful lifted. He liked his trucks. I mean, super clean, a military guy, retired military guy. And all of a sudden, like, he had no more stickers on his truck, and he only had them, like, I think on like the top or on maybe a side window or something. And I'm like, where'd your stickers go? He goes, oh man, he goes, I'm going to tell you why. He goes, I can't stop working. He goes, I got bills to pay, and he goes, but drywall's not essential. He's like, I got to keep going. And I was like, he's got a good point, man. So he ripped his stickers off, and obviously he had all these customers, including me, so, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. So it always makes me think about the rap a little bit, and the old government, that we might have to go silent. Let's just say, you know what I mean? Just something to I always kind of keep that in the back of my head a little bit now, where it's like, yeah, maybe a sticker that a white magnet could go over might not be such a bad idea. I mean, they're great advertising, don't get me wrong, but it just freaked me out that luckily we got turned into essential, because we were doing fire departments, and we were also doing road commission. So we kind of were okay. And, but it was scary, man. Thinking, especially, could you imagine when all those restaurant people got shut down? I mean, that was horrible. That just blew my mind that these people got bills, man. And what really got me is I thought, you know what, if you're going to shut them down, then they shouldn't have to pay property taxes. You know what I mean? That's how I looked at it. Like, they should just be able to, because hey, the shingles are start wearing out, the siding's still getting sun on it, the windows are going to be getting older, and they got no revenue. You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. Like I said, or they should be able to make them sign a contract that just says, hey, if you enter this building, you understand that you could die. Kind of like what is that? What do they call it? The slingshot or whatever, like at the amusement parks where you go on the rubber bands and they shoot you way in the air, you know, kind of like that. They have you sign a waiver, like you can't sue us if you die. You know what I mean? Okay. Well, I know my risk. I'm okay with it. I'll sign here. You know, got to keep them going. Love all those tools, ladders. Yeah, the tools, man, and the van. Those always are, like I said, even I don't know why the one guy is having problems. He's got a cutaway van, the one that's got that what was it called, a KU or something, KUV box style on it, and he's been complaining that he's getting moisture and stuff. It's just like the vans are just so simple. I don't like. I like the cutaway vans better. They got more room in them. I mean, once you go to that, you're like, I'm never going back because you can, especially when you get loaded up on the all your Carhartt stuff and that, and the platforms on the back. The bumper is amazing to be able to put your foot on that thing and climb in the back. They got so much room. I loved it. It kept me so organized. I miss my old red van. I really do. I should. I've been sneaking around looking. I've been sneaking around Craigslist and stuff. I've been looking, but I just can't find one that's not all rusty. I should have kept the old red one probably. The darn thing drove nice. You know how you just get a certain vehicle that just like you really should hang on to it. You know what I mean? Like it feels right, it drives right. It's been so reliable. It just mm, I was one of those vehicles. I probably get another one, never feel the same. Couldn't I have said it better? We do a bunch of residential, commercial. Great. Yes. I got, oh, plus both. Nice. Nice. I had when I had some of you guys might remember, some of you don't. I had the Ford Raptor. I had it wrapped. And the problem I found out was I started getting sick of people coming up to me, um, at grocery stores and stuff like that, personal things, events, sometimes family things, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? It's good, especially when you need the business. But I was to a point where it's like I don't really need the business. This is where this is becoming a nuisance. So it's like as you start getting older or more seasoned into into business or whatever, you start kind of going like, look, you need to go through the right channels. I would start getting so many people, um, just friends, not even close friends, just people I've done work for that I consider friends and things like that. That it's like they would call me personally, and I'd be like, I'd almost be like, you can't call me, and they'd be like, well, why? And I'm like, because I will screw it up. I hate saying this, but I will screw it up. You try to give me an address and all this. I got so many other things in my brain going on, and I got this, I got that. You know, I got to pay this. I got taxes. I got this. I got a property. I got this. Like I can't remember this, dude. Like you got to go through the secretary because when I try to relay this to the secretary is going to blow my butt up about like, well, did you ask him this? Did you ask him that? Did you? No, I didn't. I was driving down the road at 60 miles an hour and I had cars swerving and I was just trying to like, write it down while I had my phone crammed up to, with with a piece of cardboard I found in the back and a crayon my kid left in here. So it's like you need to call them and schedule it. You can kind of tell me, hey, I'm going to come through the pipeline, but you need to go through the right channels if you want this done in a timely manner and done correctly. You know what I mean? Like you get to a point, like I said, it's funny when you think about it. When our vendor used to come years ago, I could always tell you, I was like one of those things I was so proud of. I was so proud of like, I know everything is on that truck. Like I was like, oh, that one's for Mrs. Jane, and that one's for Mr. Jones, and that's for Don or whatever down the street. You know what I mean? And then nowadays it started becoming like a blur because you're just getting so much. You're just like, who? Like, well, this is for my customer when you got, worker, and you're like, oh, okay. And, well, this one's for that because that one got screwed. Oh, whatever. Unload the crap. I don't know. Set it over here. So, oh, Get all the tools. Yeah. So you could, yeah. What is this? A 3219 lifts. No problem. And I have used a 20 include trailer, residential jobs, billboard one, payment for advertisement. Nice. Nice. That's awesome. 3219. Oh yeah. See, see here. I just busy there. So in Iowa, what's this say? Busy there, pandemic. We don't do mask or anything. We just put doors in and all builders and contractors, same thing. We just work through it. That's awesome. That's awesome. We had one of our builders. He was kind of first starting out, right? And we our one vehicle, our van that we bring up there, fully wrapped. And there's other contractors, they don't got maybe fully wrapped vehicles or whatever, but they got their names and stuff on the side. And I remember we go in this building. This building's huge. And we all got different work. So we're all in different trades. Electricians there, plumbers there, garage door guys there. And I remember, we had to finish the openers. That's all. It was kind of when the whole crackdown came and we had the doors installed. We got everything stacked because it's like we could do that with whoever owned it or something because like we had to secure the building, but the openers were kind of like a gray area for us because everything was new, right? And I remember he's like, you can come up here. He's like, I remember him telling me, you park that damn van around back where nobody sees it. You know, yes, yes, sir. You know what I mean? And there was a bunch of other contractors that parked, and we go in there and what a weird feeling, to be in there and feel like you're a freaking criminal, horrible, horrible. You go in there and you're like, should we, uh, and I remember when the whole thing was going on, I think I had 30 minutes of a panic attack for myself. And I remember telling myself, I just said, you know what? If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I can't live in fear. You know what I mean? And it was just it was horrible. And then what it did to the whole system of garage doors and vendors and make some people feel like they're important, some people they're not important, to making other people lazy. You know what I mean? It really screwed our country. It really did. I'm next year. I don't know if they're going to pull another rabbit out of their hat. We'll see. I hope not because it's service body. Oh, okay. So you got a service body on the Duramax and hated it. Couldn't keep water. Oh, see, I'm glad you said that because that's what he keeps having problems. He keeps saying he's getting condensation. So he's got I think he's got a DeWalt impact. It has a weird glitch to it all the time. And he's like, I get condensation, he says, in my box, which is really weird. Cause I'm like, my cutaway van never had like a drop. And I love the doors that came down because I use those as like almost like a tailgate. So I could just pull up to gates or whatever I was working on, drop my little tailgate, you know what I mean? And I had a nice work surface there. I mean, it was just phenomenal for me. But maybe something on his is just not sealing. But he kept talking about, you're kind of saying the condensation. See, it sounds like he's getting that. I don't understand why they're getting the condensation because I don't remember it happening so much. I mean, I understand that obviously inside you got the heater running. I wonder if that's why. Hmm. He's got his door doesn't close because he's got a box in the middle that holds stuff. I think he can have a third person, a center seat it has in it. But mine didn't. Mine had the door, and I probably shut my door more often than he does, because I, obviously keep the heat in, which was great. That was a huge upgrade when I had that because that's the problem with the van is a lot of guys don't like it because don't heat up very well. Like a truck does because you're only heating the cab. Well, with that van with that cutaway, I could slide the back door. Boom, man! I got my own little space up there. I stayed nice and toasty. So when you're out working on whatever gates or doors, you could hop in there and you'd be nice and warm again. I'd shut that door also for privacy if I had to use the old bathroom. So that worked out pretty good too. The window was there, but it was scratched and it was pretty dirty. So I left it kind of dirty for a reason. Mm-mm-mm. Out of the darn boxes and doors would something open, dry. Ooh, yeah. Road. Ooh. So and the service van. Oh, I see. Their '06 van. So Tanner, are you thinking like you're gonna go with like just a standard van? No cutaway van, just a standard van with the doors. Is that what you're thinking? So you're not gonna worry about all the doors and stuff popping open on you? Not built in a day. Wait till, but small fleet of them. Jesus says, don't. Yes. Anxiety for anything. Oh, that's good. I like that. Time. Let's just work through it. Yep. Cutaway van was wonderful about those diesel. Yeah. Like I said, I miss my cutaway. I got in that, I was using the one service van for a while. It was basically because captain was going to hire another guy. So I was going through the van. He said there was a few things missing. So I ended up, I think there was like a grinder missing. Um, what else? I think it needed a serpentine belt, a back seal around the door. Nothing. It just, that thing was always like that from the day we bought it new. Just some little stuff, right? I needed an oil change. I got an oil change. I got the new ladder rack on it. And when I was using that van, especially for me, because I typically always get into some bigger jobs, something maybe I always like kind of like doing the stuff the guys don't like doing, or something that's going to take days. And so I remember I got in that service van and I'm using it right. Well, I put concrete in there, I got water jugs in there, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I am dying for space. Now, another thing to always keep in mind, which is I didn't really I didn't know it existed so much until we accidentally bought one. We had another service van that we still have, that's extended. And I know Captain and another guy that runs it love it because it's got that extra, I think it's like 2 feet. So they can darn near put like full 12-foot doors or something in there and shut the doors. Um, I know 16 foots don't stick out as far because garage door panels, because I do remember one of the guys that used to work for me, he ended up I remember I'm in the office and I remember he goes down the road, right? He's gone for 10, 15 minutes, whatever. Next thing I know, he comes back and he's out there grabbing some red tape or whatever we got, because we keep it up by the door, for flags. And he's out there and I'm like, man, what are you doing back here? And he goes, God darn, he goes, I got pulled over by the cop. And he goes, I think it was 3 feet, anything over 3 feet past the taillights, it has to be flagged. And so he didn't have a flag on it, which kind of silly on him. Cause like I said, we offer the flags. I flag everything. I don't care if it's a foot sticking or the door is open, just flag the darn thing. Why even deal with it? Why even deal with getting pulled over? Why even question it? Whatever. When somebody rear ends you, you're not doing something dishonest where you're, going out there and trying to put a flag on it. The flag's on it. It's buried in the metal here, or maybe it was a bump and you'd be like, I don't know how they hit me, you know. Well, you had a flag on it, so that wasn't, maybe the taillights, whatever. You know what I mean? I just rather go above and beyond when it comes to that stuff, because why? Why do you even bother getting the whole pulled over and stuff? But I just realized with that van, and the nice thing is typically with vans, trucks always cost more. They always cost more. You know, the van, they're cheaper to find, typically used. And one of them I seen before they would do it, they actually put a, I would never do the dual sliding doors. I thought that was always kind of stupid, or dual opening doors, because that takes up your space, right? But I've seen one that had behind the driver's seat against that wall, they actually had a seat that would go in there or would stay there permanently, I guess, if you wanted to. And I thought, I like that, because I thought, sometimes you run into where you need to haul three guys, which a lot of times if we got to haul three guys, we typically, we throw a chair in the back, you know what I mean? Whatever, throw, a lawn chair or something back there. They ride back there. If they don't want to ride back there, so worried, I'll ride back there. You know what I mean? But I just thought the one that had three extra seats, and that was a bench. I thought that was a really cool idea, because you could always put it in there when you needed to take the van to a certain job that you needed extra crew, instead of having a whole, a crew cab all the time. They're typically just filling up with all your stuff anyways, jackets, lunch pails. And the thing is like, it really, your stuff gets dirty, right? You're on a job site, you got a lunch pail, whatever, and then you're inside the job, whatever. You got it inside of scissor lift or something. It gets that rusty dirt on, and then you go throw it in the crew cab, and the back seat's dirty. You got to put um, seat covers over. It just, I don't know. They just don't. They didn't work that good for us. You know what I mean? It's not that there's pros and cons. That's for sure. But yeah, it's just hard to beat those vans. Are cheap. They normally sit about the right height for, like you said, with all the ladder racks. Um, the thing was, is like, there's more options, I think. I'm sure you can buy them, but my ladder racks always on trucks were just flat. So you always had to drag everything off the back. You couldn't drag nothing off the side. It seemed like I was always climbing on the tire. I'm always climbing in the back. I mean, it gets old, especially on your knees and stuff. Especially when you do it for a living. It's hard on you, man. I start thinking about, I got I bought a little beater Nissan, just to drive around for the winter and stuff, basically for deer camp. And I love that it's low. It's like, you always, I want that lifted, but it's like low is nice, man. You can just reach in there, grab everything. The bed is real easy to grab stuff. Um, like I said, it's a little beater, but it works nice. I like convenience now. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. Man, let's see. Oh, 4x4 conversion. Holy cow, man. Tanner, what you got going here? You got a four-wheel drive? I've looked at those. Those things normally go for a lot of money. Um, they normally are lifted a little bit too, at least from what I doors, no problem. That's about longest you can get. Oh, in it. Yeah, sometimes the doors can be a little. I don't remember what we stacked in ours. We've laid them down. We turn them on their side. Typically, we shut the one back door and then put a piece of cardboard or something there so the door doesn't get mangled up too many. Have you worried all the way to the job? Actually went. Have to worry. Yeah, let's see. Went 3 hours into Minnesota. Put doors in for a family member. Ooh, nice, and didn't move at all. Yeah, it's just, if you ain't got nothing by the back doors of those vans, I mean, there's just something about enclosure that's built by a manufacturer instead of you know. So on a truck, right? I remember one time we had a door section. I'm pretty sure I strapped it down. I could be wrong with this. We had the ladder rack on the truck, right? And I remember we had the door sections up there. I think it was like a 16x7 type door. This is like an older. This is like a 96 Chevy extended cab. I don't know if it was a long box or not. Anyways, but I took the strap, right? You got the bar that's on the side that kind of keeps anything from sliding off. So I ran a strap right around that puppy, right? Just cranked it down to two of them. And I remember we're going through this causeway area and the wind it's blowing pretty good. Next thing I know, right? All of a sudden, I'm talking to the dude next to me. Yeah, man, we're just talking about life, whatever. All of a sudden, those sections came over. Oh, wow. I mean, it came over on the driver's side. And I mean, it was like, talk about an accident waiting to happen. I mean, that scared the living poop out of me. And I'm just like, holy crap, and I'm like watching these door sections hang off the side of the truck. Like I said, there's two straps, but there was nothing holding it down in the center, right? It's like a loop. So it had, the wind caught it and flipped them over. And I remember I pulled off to the side. Now the problem is I can't get out of the truck because the doors are hanging down on my driver's side, blocking my door from opening. And I mean, I was like, oh my gosh. And all I kept, then next thing comes to mind is like, how did I damage these doors? How long did it take to get these doors? Is this a painted door? Is this door got like, oh my gosh, we've already ruined the job before we even got there. Awesome. This is great. And luckily, I think it worked out. Luckily, they were just the backside. They were just little minor dents or something. It wasn't severe, but holy cow. And I had we had on the Ranger one time. We were we were fighting the blizzard. I mean, it was cold, nasty out. We ended up I remember we were having problems with weather seals. It was shattering on us. It was so cold. Every time you try to shoot it with the gun, it would just shatter. So we were wrapping the weather seal in the front of the truck, got the heater cranked, and we were having battery problems. Our batteries weren't charging because they were just so cold. And I remember we ended up we threw the stuff on top of the truck, right? And we're drenched. This driveway's got like a foot of snow in it. It's that wet, sloppy stuff. Our shoes are wet, our feet are wet, our feet are cold, our hands are frozen. I mean, we're done. Like this is our last job. Like even if we had another job, we're like, we're done. We traveled a long ways to get there. We already were fighting traffic that had a lot of car accidents on the road that we should have just turned around. So we're just going to call it a day. So I remember we get cooking down the road, right? We get out of the subdivision, right? We start cooking down the road, and all of a sudden, my business partner at the time, he goes to um, start eating his lunch. He's like, "Man, I'm starving," And I mean, we're just trying to get this job done. I mean, as soon as he put that sandwich in his mouth, all of a sudden I watched the door sections. These are the old ones, and come off the truck. I mean, something like in the movies, right? Just flies up in the air. Everything, cardboard, everything. And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I remember he had that sandwich, and he throws it down back in the bucket. He's, "God damn it. What's going on?" I said, "You didn't strap," it was my fault too. It's like, "You didn't strap the stuff down." It's all scattered across the road, right? We pull off to the side. We run out of the truck. We're trying to throw this crap off to the side. I got like, I don't know what you want to call it. I got like a Karen sitting there in her car, right? Just staring at us. "Should I call the cops? Should I call my mommy? What should I do?" And I'm like waving for her. "Come on, come on, just come on. We got it cleared for you. Just come on. We'll clean this crap up." You know, and so of course, it's got wet, the slush and stuff. So now we're chucking it on top of the truck, and I'm like, "God dang, stupid." Bah, 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 bah. Putting straps on it, cranking it down the side of the road now, right? All the neighbors are glued to their windows, what's going on over here? Oh man, and it's just like I said, I've had so many problems with it over the years where stuff flies out. I've lost ladders, um, you name it. I mean, I remember, what was it in a truck? Was it in a truck? I had angle iron. We're going to a job way too far away. My subcontractor dropped the ball. He left instructions at the job site. This customer was calling us out, like trying to, just give us a ring around. I read the instructions. The instruction says that the strut must go in the center. And I'm like, screw the strut in the center. Why would you put the struts in the center when there's a window on the top section? You put the strut on the top of the section. You want to look at a strut through your windows? No. And it's on the top where the J arm goes. I remember we go up there, right? And I had angle iron sticking out of the back. Well, I had a passenger with me, a worker. And for his convenience and safety, and including myself, I put a cone on it, right? I thought I'm going to stick a cone on here. That way, if he walks between the truck and trailer, because that happens all the time, right? You got to stop at McDonald's, Burger King, wherever, breakfast. You walk through there, right? Possibly. And that's all you need is a piece of angle, the right height of your head to peel you. And now we're going to the hospital. So I put that cone on there. I tape it on, right? What's that cone turn into? Dum dum. It turns into a sail, right? It's a parachute. So what does it do? We're going down the road. I mean, this didn't even happen right away. It happened like halfway up through the travel. It goes between the truck and the trailer because I'm pulling, I think I had the scissor lift, or maybe I just had a trailer for whatever. Doesn't matter. Angle iron goes between it, right? Of course, it gets stuck. What's it do? It goes right down the tailgate of the truck, puts a nice healthy dent and scratch down the center of my tailgate. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, I did this for safety, and now it screwed me. We're traveling way too far. So I already got up to the customer. That's a long story. And I made sure the other guy dealt with them because I was not a happy camper that I had to spend all this time and gas. And now my truck is damaged. You know what I mean? Like, you spend a lot of money on this stuff. A lot of money. Oh, '06 Durham Express. Yeah. 10-2, no problem. Oh, sweet. That's right. You were saying that. Yeah. On the way to the job. Yes. Opener service. Oh, this is cool. What's up, Mr. Mark? How did you get educated on commercial opener service? I don't remember anything right away when it came to the commercial. I still remember the guy, because I had my business partner and then there was me. And I remember my business partner was always the guy that always did like replace, replace, replace. And finally, this one guy that was running the place, the maintenance guy, told me, he said, "Dave," he says, "look, If we replace it, I got to get 3 bids. And if we fix it, I basically have an open checkbook. I was like, "Oh, I think I get your point." Because obviously if we get 3 bids, we're going to have to keep our bid really low. Other people are going to come in, they're going to go low or lower because focus, because that's just how it works. And so we end up tearing stuff apart. But I learned through the school of hard knocks. I still remember we installed one for a commercial lady, and I remember she ended up it was a rolling steel door. We got the voltage wrong. So we ordered this brand new opener. For us at the time, this is a lot of money, $500-$600 for an opener. A lot of money, especially when you're first starting out. I remember we get that thing all hooked up. We got so much pride that we did this. You know what I mean? We accomplished this. We basically did it from a ladder because that's all we had at the time. And I remember he go ahead, kick the power on. So I turned the power on. My business partner's up there, right? And all of a sudden that thing, and I remember a big cloud of smoke come out of it. And it's like, holy crap! You shut the breaker off as fast as you can. What the heck, man? Well, it was like a 3-phase. And I think they had like 480 or something like that. And we were like 2-phase at like 3 something or whatever. I don't remember. We had the voltage wrong. So now it's embarrassing, right? We had to tear that thing down. I remember we get to the shop, right? Remember the business partner, he just chucks that thing out, piece of junk. And I'm like, dude, it's probably something kind of simple. Like we shouldn't just throw it on the ground, like leave it in the rain. You know what I mean? Like can find a use for it somewhere. So I drag it in, right? Luckily, that customer at the time kind of said, "Hey, I don't think this is all my fault. I don't think this is all your fault. We did email you and told the voltage to you, but you guys also didn't check." Okay, fair enough. So luckily we charged so much that now when we charged half, really it covered the cost of that opener for the next one to come in, which was good because we didn't have a lot of money. We were broke. So we had installed it, everything worked fine. I took that old opener, which is weird, and it was a transformer. And my stepdad actually built transformers for a living, so I actually was able to give it to him. He took it to a shop. He recreated the transformer, and I put it in there. And I actually bought an inverter, and I used it on my own house. So I used this big commercial gear-headed opener on a 18 by 8 garage door, insulated TS200. And I never had any safeties on it or something. I had them bypassed. Well, then I finally started putting safeties on it because I watched my dog almost get squashed one time, and her little legs were squeaking out the back because she tried to go under the door while it was moving, and I'm yelling at her and everything else. I thought I was going to kill my dog. It was way overkill. But it was just something that was, to me, it was free. I could fix it. I learned. So there wasn't a real critical. It was always just you just gotta kind of jump into it. And to be honest, the power of the internet now, you got it right here. You got it right in the palm of your hands. You can always, and honestly, Mark, I mean, that's what I'm here for. I'm really here for you guys. If you got questions or something like that, you know, bounce some stuff around. One of those things when I kind of start getting annoying and stuff like that, I'm okay. I give my phone number out to guys. Um, and they text me with questions. Some of those guys, that watch me, they actually text me and they give me information. Like I got one guy, I don't even know what his name is. I know he's a 4 something 02 number for an area code. He messes me about gate operators. He's a cool cat, and he'll ask me questions or he'll give me some information about LiftMaster gate operators. It's just and if you get into a real pinch or something, I'm always willing to help people out because I've been around most of it that it's either, hey, you got to replace it, you got to change out this part. A lot of it comes down to when I didn't have the internet, I was like a how do you call it? Tech service genius or whatever you call it. I don't know what you call it. Like I had to call tech support all the time. And then you start getting to a point where tech support really annoys you. And so what I've always found what's worked for me is like when I call tech support, it's really weird sometimes. Well, I'll do all my normal things. I'll check power. I'll check this. I'll unplug all the safeties. I'll get this thing back to normal operation, to standard, to whatever the system might be. I call tech support. Um, and I've had it where what I'll do is they almost will tell you one step and it's almost like your brain starts running, right? Like you'll start going, they'll go, have you checked it? And you're like, oh, that's right. I need to check this next thing. I got this figured out. Or they will help you and say, well, we determined that we think it's a bad board. You got to do this, you got to do that. Um, there's ways, there's ways. Um, there's ways around this stuff. You just got to be kind of creative. It's not too bad. Like I said, the biggest thing is you got to make sure you have the time. That's really what it comes down to. You always got to have the time, because if you don't got the time, if you got too many customers or you're traveling too far and you can't do a good job, that's where you run into problems. I've been there, where it's like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? When it's been like, when you travel too far, it just, man, it adds up. It ain't no good. It really isn't. I remember doing jobs that we did a big old gate operator. We slam dunked it, but I remember the guy asking me, it was a fence guy, and he asked me about something. He goes, you guys want to service this too? I'm like, hell no, we don't want to service this. This is way too far away. Like, we ain't gonna make no money. And then of course, the one biggest one I ever had, right? The guy that was a fence guy, and we did sub work for him. He ended up I remember, we got up to $10,000, right? He owed us some money and he always paid, right? He was always, we always, he was a middleman, and he paid, whatever. And then all of a sudden he's not paying. We're like, oh, I'm like, he's good. He's probably busy, whatever. And then come find out, he sexually molested his daughter. He's going to prison. I got to get attorney involved. I mean, he won't sign off on any of the invoices. Oh my gosh, man. What a stinking nightmare that was. 12 some years ago, we had door sections on a ladder rack. Ooh, in a truck. Used, worked, had a strap down, closing up to the front. Way job to find. Oh man. Tell you what, those straps. You want to know something that's really funny? I should tell this because maybe somebody's experienced this besides me. We were we were doing something fun, right? Me and my business partner at the time, we had a day that I don't know, we didn't have any work or something. He was always big about, we had Yamaha Banshees. And he's like, let's go up. We got this place around up north from us here. It's called Silver Lake Sand Dunes. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. It's a big place. It's a big sand pit. It's huge. It's big travel destination for people. It's a beautiful place, really beautiful. If you ever get up to Michigan, check it out. It's I can just cruise around the area and I love it. Just I can sit there on a beach chair all day because it's just people and big trucks, and it's just, especially if you get in the dunes, it's hilarious to watch people try to climb the hills and stuff with their trucks. They got all kinds of money that I don't have. So anyways, we're going up there, right? And I bought these brand new straps. I can't remember where I got. I might have got them from Menards. I am pretty sure it wasn't Harbor Freight. About darn near. They were green straps. Anyways, I strapped these Banshees down, right? We had a snowmobile trailer, so there's no real sides to it, right? It's just a single axle snowmobile trailer, two place. We got both machines strapped, right? Now, where we screwed up is we probably should have made sure both were in gear, right? I don't know if we did that, or maybe I did it and he didn't, or something like that. Anyways, I ran a strap, in the front, strapped it down. We got it so the suspension's down, right? So everything's bouncing, everything's good. We did the same in the rear, right? We did both, and my package of straps only had, 4 straps in it, and they're brand new, brand spanking new, never been used. Opened them up, put them in. Anyways, we're getting up there about 75% the way up there, driving along, and I look in the rearview mirror and I can see one's coming loose. I can see it's like it's gonna dump. It's coming off the trailer. And I'm like, oh. And he's like, what? And I go, and when I'm looking in a rearview mirror, our machines are identical. I can't tell if it's his or mine. I don't know what side mine's on unless I'm outside the vehicle, right? I don't know. I'm like, we're losing a quad, Well, it rolls off, right? I see it hit the pavement, and I look, on the side mirror, right? And I can see it's rolling. And I'm like, oh, we're good, man. I said, it's just rolling. Well, all of a sudden it got to the side of the grass, does the old flipperooski, it bends everything. Pull off side, come to find out it's his. It sucks. Anyways, the point is that hook was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It wasn't just a rubber or anything, it was metal in there, but that hook bent straight. I've never seen this before where a hook will bend straight. It wasn't like we were hauling metal and we hit the brakes or anything, but it was almost like the metal wasn't hardened. You know what I mean? Like it was just a soft piece of hook. I don't know how to explain it. It went straight. And I have no clue how that ever happened, especially with just 4-wheel drive, 4x4 Banshees. They're not super heavy. We weren't slamming on the brakes. We were just cruising down the road. And how that hook came straight just amazes me. So it's just always a good reminder that you should always put a second chance on there. Even if we would have put a rope, a second strap, put it in gear, something. It just might have avoided that because now the whole day was wrecked. I remember he was trying to get it running, but it has some anti-theft thing on it where that got damaged or something. So the thing wouldn't start. And the handlebars were, we got the rim fixed or something, the tire back on, but what a mess, man. I tell you. So use protection out there, boys. Always double up. Double up. Okay. Okay, good. I'm glad we got that aside. Out 2 sections. Fold it. Ooh, fold it over, man. Not good deal. Dang, man. I know what you mean with that folded over. I've had it too where we've had them before where the rain starts coming. You're like, oh, it's been a beautiful sunny day. And all of a sudden the rain's coming, they're on top, right? And all of a sudden the cardboard starts ripping or whatever, and you got the strap. And now that you're like in the truck, or I've had it where it goes on the bottom. So it hits the roof. You know what I mean? So it's in there, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is annoying, or it's getting wet, or it just comes loose. Like I said, I've done all that pickup truck stuff. I am done with that stuff. And I still get guys that'll, they come in the shop and I want a truck. You ain't getting no damn truck. You're getting a van because they just never work. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, I see other services around us. Some of them will use a couple. One guy that he always swore by, I love my truck, I'm like, yeah, but he worked for another company. I'm like, you're not the owner, you know what I mean? Or I think it's different when you're not an owner, when you're an owner, you're always looking for economical, things that make things easier. The longevity of your life, your knees, your back, things that you can do in a worst case scenario, you can do by yourself. I mean, I've tried yanking doors off, and I've creased them, by accident, pulling off like a ladder rack off the top of a truck. I've done them by myself. I remember one time, I think I brought a secretary with me or something. I'm like, look, I just need you to help me get these off the truck. I was like, and you can just basically sit there, you can answer the phone, blah, 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 and it's like, come to find out, she's too short. So she's like reaching, and it's like she can't reach it, what I mean, as it comes off. And I'm like, okay, will you come down here and hold this end? I'll come back over here and do this end. And then you're doing like 3/4 of the door anyways. And you're just like, oh my gosh, my back's about ready to blow. So the stuff's up too high. It's just up too high. When you got in the back of the van, like I said, it's right by your stomach. You can grunt it. You can slide it out. I've done all kinds of crazy things with the vans. I pulled the van up to the garage, and I've literally like slid them out, like by myself because they're so heavy or something, and got them, on sawhorses. I get one end on a sawhorse. I take the other end to move it. Done a lot of creative things on that because you just got to do what you got to do. But when you're doing it by yourself sometimes, and you can't always rely on somebody going to be there to help you, especially if you got workers or whatever, they just, sometimes they're a no show, or they got family emergencies. So it's like, you're always looking for the worst case thing that's going to happen. I said, oh yeah. And with the farmers and the old guys, what you got here? Oh yeah. With the farmers, they want it fixed. It's not too hard. Just pull it apart. See, yeah. Farmers. Yeah. It's kind of weird, but like, I think that's kind of like, it's hard to say. The one guy does big farms around here. And I know he does really well. I mean, like cattle farms and stuff like that. But I hear him working in the dirt a lot. I mean, a lot. I don't know if there's just because we're not putting a floor in. So he's always working in the dirt a lot. But he's got these. The nice thing I think with the farmers was that they're pretty faithful. But like for us, we don't have a lot. We're I don't know what you call it, metro, whatever. We don't have a lot of that, and I found out like when we go to the outskirts, kind of like that guy I went to years ago. And I remember his extension spring was welded like 4 times. I'm like, what the? And he's like, oh yeah, the darn thing kept breaking. And I'm like, well, they're going to break. Well, I didn't know that. And he says, I figured it's like it's like a car spring on the front of a car. He goes, they're not meant to break. He says they last pretty much the life of the car. Well, these darn garage door springs. And I'm like, yeah, after so many cycles, they break. And he's like, huh, and so it's like, sometimes you get out those farther areas. A lot of times these guys are, uh, not always, but they're, the bigger farms obviously aren't, but some of these guys are cheaper and they don't, they just fix the stuff themselves, which is fine. You know what I mean? And I don't blame them. I mean, I'm same way. I want to, hey, I'll save some money too if I can fix it myself, because you just never know what you're going to get. And how many, we've all had bad service. I've had bad furnace guys, you name it. They come out, tell you one thing. You have another guy come out, he tells me another thing. You got one that yanks wires because he wants to sell you a new furnace. I mean, it's horrible what goes on out there. I mean, it's really sad. So let's see. Mark says here, I do residential work. I carry a pile of springs inside the truck. Well, that's good, to help keep them out of the weather. To grab what's the best setup. Ooh, you know, I guess Mark, if you wanted to, you could probably, I'm sure either somebody could comment on this video, or you could always email me. I would have to do some digging a little bit, and I don't even know the setup that I have anymore is up to. Nah, you know what? I bet I could figure it out. I bet Captain knows, because he alters the springs a little bit. He sees what goes on more than I do, and but like we used to always carry, what is it? Is it 195 or 197? That one was always one that we didn't carry on the truck, that sometimes would get us, sometimes very little. But we typically always carried a pair of 207s. I couldn't tell you length. Everything we carry is 2 inch. So it was what, 207, 218, 225. Um, what did we do? We did 243s of some sort on there. Those weren't that used that much. 250 gets you out of a jam. These were all pairs. We did a pair of everything. 262 was always a good one. And then I would run into a dilemma once in a while. So I always kept 273 on the truck at a certain length. Now, the problem is that, we'd always get an oddball here. You get somebody with like a, 10x9 insulated door or something goofy. And those were hard, so like we always had the springs, but we'd also carry, spring clamps. I don't know, Mark, if you ever use spring clamps, but they can be a lifesaver. Some guys are kind of dead against them. I've always been, if you feel threatened by them, or like even on bigger stuff that we've used, um, go ahead and pair them up. It's a little bit more challenging to do it, but it can be done. And we put two springs kind of on opposite sides of each other, crank the hell out of them. Basically, we almost crank them down enough where we break the things down. And when you wind them back up, sometimes we don't put as much tension in as what should be there, especially if there's an opener on there. But also, you're already dealing with a compromised spring. So make sure you wear safety glasses, because I did have one break on me one time and I knew it was coming. I don't know why. It's just, I felt it. I was doing, excuse me, I was doing a residential, and I remember I was winding that thing up, and I didn't have any safety glasses on at the time. And I remember that thing go boom, man, it blew. All the, the metal's just, it's shot. It's fatigue. And man, it made one hell of a noise. And I remember the guy that was there, I think he was a little flamboyant, let's just say. So he came in and he's like, "Oh my gosh." He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think so." Fingers check. You know what I mean? And I'm like, "Yep, we're all good." And all I kept thinking was like, "Oh my gosh." And I heard something fly and hit something behind me. You know what I mean? And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "This is stupid. I should be wearing safety glasses." And I wasn't. So anytime I always deal with those springs, that are broken, that you're doing a clamp on them, regardless, you really should, regardless of any spring, you should always wear safety glasses. I know I'm getting old. So, before it all heal, I'm fine. And I'm invincible. But that's kind of what we carried. I've always wanted to. I haven't seen anybody. I mean, if you guys ever come across it or anything, you can always shoot me an email. I'd love to see a picture, but I've always been considering doing God darn it, I had it figured out. I think I was going to do a 16-foot maybe, or 12-foot long trailer. I don't know. I got a print somewhere for it. And I drew it out how I would lay it out so you could slide the springs, and I was just going to have it where that thing, the guys could hook up to at any point and drag that, because we'd have so many uses for that. because then it's just a one-stop shop, right? Because that's your biggest problem with broken springs is they can be very profitable, but if you got to go back, that's time that you could be out doing another job, making money, and you're kind of rolling the dice. You know what I mean? And trust me, I've done it where you sneak a spring on there that just isn't quite right, but it'll do the job. You know what I mean? Because there's an opener on it, and it just you just feel so much better at night if you would put the right spring on it and it worked like a charm. Or I've had it where somebody else put the wrong springs on. I put the springs on and I'm like, God darn it, like this is all I got. Or I've had it where I've done two customers, I use 218 here, so I'm going to use 225 here. It's working. I can manipulate the spring a little bit, but you're just not real proud of it. And I thought if you had a trailer with 10-foot licks on it, you could just pull them out of a bin or whatever, cut them off. You got a torch in there. You can make anything work. You know what I mean? You got the scales in there. So that was always something I thought about doing, but I never got around to it because it's tricky when you got employees because the fact that you're pulling a trailer. Some guys aren't good with backing up trailers. It's more liability. You're around houses. What if they smash up the side of the house or something? It's kind of like, or you just take the hit. You know what I mean? But one thing that'll save you is obviously if you're working close to the shop and not traveling a long ways, that saves the day all the time. We just had a job not too long ago. It was like you could almost throw a rock to the shop, you know what I mean? And it was like that reassurance that the guy I was working with, he had a crappy job. The customer in the garage wasn't cleaned out very good, right? And he's like, "What if I need this? Or what if this?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm like, oh, you can almost see it through the trees." I'm like, "The shop is right there. You got everything you need. So you could go get a whole nother door if you need to. Hey, if you want to take a bathroom break, the shop is right there. If you got a really bad crap, go there. If you need there's a fridge in there. It's got some goodies in it. That's right there. You know what I mean? Like it's so much more convenient if you're close. But if you go away and travel, especially if you don't have the right goodies, ooh, that's not good. It's not good. Residential, let's see. So in our vans, I think we have a lower compartment. Um, the guys would normally stuff them in there, or I always stuffed them behind the driver's seat. They're pretty bulky, obviously, the garage door springs. So we and then something that might help you out that helped us a lot. I know Captain even does it to this day, is when they're in the van, there's a couple things. Some of them don't get rotated very often, right? So what I would do sometimes, I'd spray a little WD on them or something, just a mist of some kind of oil, just to help keep them so they look new. You know what I mean? Nothing worse. You got to go to the customer, you yank out those springs that have been there for 6 months, and they got a little road grime or something, or whatever your boots are tracking and stuff. But what we would do is we'd actually take and we take cellophane. We get it for like I don't know. I think they're only like 6 inches or something like that. We take some cellophane, we wrap around the spring, maybe in the front and the bottom, the top and the bottom, or just in the center. Captain does that a lot, and I took it a step farther. I'd actually write on the plastic after I'd wrap it. I write the size of the spring on it because I'm lazy and I want to be able to have it identify. Because what I found out was when you got a pile of springs, you're always digging through them. You know what I mean? And I kind of know what a 207 and 218 is going to look like for length and stuff, but you're always digging, right? You're digging for them. God darn it, where is this spring? And then it also, I think we had 14 springs. That's the number that comes to my head. We have 14 springs we carry on the truck or on the van. But you could identify them. So what we do is after maybe we only use one spring, we'd cut it open, right? We leave the wrapper there and the spring would sit off to the side. And then what that would do is that would force us when we got back to the shop, hey, we got to find the matching pair to this, left hand, right hand, whatever it might be. We made them back up. We rewrap them with the cellophane. I write the numbers, just me. I don't think the guys really do, but I'd write the numbers on it. And then I'm back off to the races. And then it was like, I could also just use that as a count for how many, I don't know, whatever, it's 7 or something like that. You got pairs of whatever, what I mean? You just made stuff more organized. And that way you always felt more confident because I would personally do it too. You'd pull a spring out and you're like, okay, 262, perfect. Where's I need 2 of them. Where the hell's the other one? Oh man, don't tell me. Oh, you know what I mean? So it made things a lot more simple. It seems like it reminds the guys. versus just use a spraying the next day. When you're cleaning out your truck and you look in the garbage or you look on the back floor and you're like, oh, what's this? There's a wrapper here. It says 207. Oh, that's right. Yesterday, I better get another one. I got to restock the van. So I always helped us out quite a bit doing that. A little oil on them, made sure that just kept stuff from rusting too. Yeah, so they probably stay about the same for assortment. Like I said, I don't think they change too much. We always had this gray area a lot with uh wood doors. Wood doors always throws us off a little bit. They're kind of hard. You got the Crawford, Barkley, um, which somebody on a video not too long ago, they told me that like they were like Crawford is Barkley or something. I'm like, I don't think that's true because I feel like I've come across. I don't know for sure. I know there's Crawford door, but the Barkley, I don't know if that's. I don't know. I don't know. I just know I've come across both of them and they're old, really old. And so I thought that even Crawford was something in Detroit. They were telling me that was a manufacturer and that's I don't remember. It was weird. And I was like, I don't think you're right with that statement because I did a little bit of research online one time. Also have to hand, but yes, spring clamps or a U clamp. Yep, U clamps. I've done that when I've been desperate. Ran down to the hardware store because my spring clamps. I've also, I mean, it's probably kind of common sense. I don't know. Maybe somebody doesn't think it. I've also taken spring clamps. I've also drilled them out. That can be a little dangerous, especially when you don't have a vise. But when you're desperate, especially when you get into like a uh, commercial, like mid commercial to commercial. Because I think Service Spring sells like three different types. I think there's like what red, blue, and yellow or something like that for spring clamps. And I typically always just try to carry, two reds, two blues, two yellows. That's what I always try to carry in my bucket just to make sure I have the right assortment because it just adds more time. If you ain't got the right drill bit, I've tried, you're sitting there, you put a board down, you're standing on it with your tippy toes or your boots, and you're trying to drill it and then the drill catches and the thing spins and it's just not that enjoyable, especially when you're crunched, you're hurting for time. You gotta, hammer it and get home or whatever you gotta do the next service call. Oddball springs or can go to, yes, you have some oddballs. We got like right now, we got some springs that need to get organized at the shop. Um, they kind of got, they were in like storage and then they got out of storage. I don't remember, but they're like on the floor. So we got a whole bunch of assortments of that too. It's just, we had a little bit better way, but we needed more room. So I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but we ended up kind of dumping them on the floor. So they need to be, but I know there is nice to have some assortment, especially like one thing I never, um, what I've noticed is like, at least around our area, I don't know about your guys' area, let me know. Um, 6-inch springs are very hard. So if you ever want to have like a competitive edge, it's expensive. But I was going to at one point I was thinking I was going to have certain 6-inch springs, maybe even 3-inch springs. They would kind of jump, but you'd have the right number of where you could lengthen them out a little bit to make them work. Because some of our commercial, we had one customer. Um, we don't do any business for them anymore, and they were a real pain in the hiney, anyways. But they were always the ones that a big 6-inch spring would blow up, and if you ever had a commercial door spring blow up, it's like they come off the cone, they're a mess. And he would always call, and it's like, I need it, I need it, I need it, I need it. When are they coming in? And it's like, look, why don't you start carrying some in stock? You have the room, you have an upstairs, you have like, but it's like they couldn't ever get it. And I always thought, if you started carrying some of this, which I could have carried some, but they had like 3 or 4 different door manufacturers on their one building. I was like, I don't want to carry all the springs. And then some of the doors had 4 springs total on them. And it's like, these things are, now they're way more. I mean, 5, 6, $1,200 a pop. I don't want to be sitting on these rusty things, and they're not even for my. And so I just thought if you bought raw, you could at least use them for other customers. It's going to take up space. It's storage. So that's kind of why I didn't really gun for it, but I always thought it's a premium because they're eventually going to get around town, all our commercial, and they're going to go, hey, I know hey, AFD or whatever has them. I mean, go over there. Those make them for you right there. You know what I mean? But you got to charge a premium. You know what I mean? And they, how that goes. Sometimes people well, geez, I can order them online and I can get them for $300 cheaper than what. Well, yeah, go ahead. And it's going to take you, 3, 4 days to get it. And I got it right now. What do you want? So it's always a weird balancing. But that's why I just thought kind of with the trailer, I don't think I'd do 6 inch, but maybe it'd have 2 to 3 inches on it. And you could, kind of eliminate R&L from, oh yeah, I carry 3 sizes, rough and light, orange to blue. Oh yeah. Yep. Shop to the shop and torch. Yeah, that's what we got. I got the old torch at the shop. Springs, coil, length. Come back when you're in the area. Yeah, those things, it's weird. Like Tanner, you're right with, we'll come back when we're kind of in the area, but it's like sometimes those things can be like, I don't know. It's like you lose sleep at night over them because you know how it is. It's like I put spring clamps on, and one place we got around here is kind of the hood. People, you know, what's wrong with that spring clamp? And I'm like, well, how much is, and the big thing, what you got to do, I'm sure you guys know this, but you got to get paid. I learned that the hard way. I'd do it right. I'd do the spring clamp, you know what I mean? And I'd be like, okay, well, we'll come back and then you can, catch up with us. And some of those dirty dogs, they would just keep the spring clamp, right? Then they would never pay, right? You never could get a hold of them, or they do the Houdini, or they go, oh no, it's fine the way it is, just leave it, and you're like, okay, well, you owe me, 70, $120, $150, whatever, because the spring clamps aren't free and I got my time out there. So I always learned, you always charge them for when you come out there, if you do a spring clamp or any service, and you always say, hey, this will be deducted off your bill when we come back, because now they feel obligated. You know what I mean? Because now they're sitting there going, I already gave money to this person. I'm not going to call somebody else. Even if somebody else shows up, or if it's your competition, they show up and they go, oh, hey, I got the springs right here. I can make them right on my trailer or truck or whatever. Like, I can fix you up today. And the guy's like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, the other person didn't charge me any money. So yeah, go ahead. How much? Oh, $200. Okay, cool. Go ahead, do it. And then, you come back into the picture. Hey, we got your stuff. Oh, I already got it fixed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you always got to think about these. Like, I show up, you need to pay me today for a service of whatever it is, and you'll be discounted. This will come off your bill. So that way it just stops. And it's funny how when you tie up money, people, like, they'll stop. They're just like, okay, I'm all settled now. Like, it's just the weirdest thing. Oh yeah. To the shop, torch. Yeah. Big job boxes of DeWalt rolling years, and had the big, what else you got on here? Toolboxes big enough. Was this the springs and cable makes angle iron cutter? Oh, nice. Bed size, nice. The one thing I never my vendor showed it to me one time. I was like, he sells everything, garage doors, springs, everything. He's a big guy for this area. He's like the biggest LiftMaster dealer in Michigan. And he had those I don't know what they're called. They're like um knuckle pinchers or whatever. It's like got a lever on it, and that's how he cuts his angle iron. He pulled it out of his truck one day and he shows it to me. This one's like an antique. I'm like, dude, like, you want to sell that? He's like, I've had a lot of people ask me that. He's like, no. And he's like, because I bought the ones from Service Spring, the ones that do it in like one big chunk, and they failed, and they just, I don't know, they just don't hold up. You got to have the ones that are the old school ones that got the replaceable teeth on them for cut and angle. But I thought, dude, I want that. But the problem is, you buy stuff like that, you get workers, you know what I mean? You buy these things that are $600, a piece, $800, whatever the number is. And all of a sudden they, oh, I left it at a job site. Oh, I did the Houdini. Oh, it grew legs. So it's like you just kind of go back to the old Sawzall and, and blades. There you go. You know what I mean? Because it's just unfortunate. And then sometimes I bought like 2 or 3 of those ones from Service Spring, and they weren't holding up. The chompers were going bad. So guys were just having a hell of a time with them. And it's like, I called Service Spring. Service Spring was very generous, and the guy admitted that they had some kind of problem where they bought them from China and they're having issues. So it says you can return it, and until we ever figure this out. And it's like every time the magazine came out or the new brochure or whatever, it's like I look at them and I go, oh, no, these things kind of look the same. They need to change their picture. Like I want instead of red one, I want to see a yellow one or something like to make me think they've fixed this problem. And I thought I'm not buying this $300 item again for it to, you know, have we weren't even like abusing them. We weren't even doing commercial. We were just doing like residential with little or commercial, and it was like these things were just getting dull and I don't know, they were tangled up. It's just weird how it works. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. My hats off to you guys that, are out there crushing it and doing it. Cause I tell you what, man, it's a lot of work. I tell you, when you get in the business side of it, it's amazing how many things just add up. It really is. When you think about, the sawzall, the blades, the cutters, the springs that you have to carry, the springs that maybe don't get used, you got to put some oil on them, all these things, man. I mean, there's just so many things. And it just, and then did you charge enough? Did you not travel too far? Did you, just so many things. But, Mark, I'm sitting here thinking about you with those, commercial openers. But, if you get a phone call, and it's something that's not too big and above your head, you know, don't be afraid. That's the biggest thing. Don't be afraid. Jump in there. You know what I mean? And, and with, you'll know with a customer, you know what I mean? If they're real pushy and they're like, hey man, you fix this today. And you're like, whoa, let me take a look at it for you. And then you can look at it and maybe you just automatically bow out. You just kind of go, hey man, the best thing to do is try to find a solution for them. Say, hey, this is who I would call. I've heard good thing about these guys, or this is who I'd recommend. That's what I would do. When we were so busy, when the old cough syndrome and stuff was going on, we couldn't even touch. Or after, maybe it was just after. We couldn't even touch residential. We couldn't do it. We had so many commercial. We ended up everything residential. We sent to our competition, and it was kind of hilarious because the guy knows me, and so we don't talk that often, but we see each other at box stores and stuff, and we always shoot the crap for a minute or two. But anyways, he calls me up and he's like, Dave, he's like, what the hell's going on? He's like, you going out of business or what? And I'm like, why? Goes, we're getting all these phone calls and you're directing all this business to us. He's like, I can't handle all this. I'm like, no. I kind of laughed, I said, no, I said, we just recommend you. I said, cause we're too busy. I said, we're doing all this commercial. And I said, I know you're not really big into commercial. He's like, oh man, he's like, I really appreciate it, but man, you got to give me a heads up. He's like, cause it's like freaked me out. He's like, we're just getting all these phone calls. And I'm like, yeah, oh, you're welcome. We didn't know who else to recommend because, you do what you said you're going to do. You seem like you treat the customer right. And, we haven't had no beef with you. So, hey, there you go. Oh, man. Oh, boxes. I love mine. Same cutter for, 2+ years. Ooh, nice. Where'd you get your cutter from? Let's see if it says, use a saw on blades, make it. Mine is yellow. All right. See, maybe they changed some. I've been thinking about DeWalt battery bandsaw. Ooh, bandsaw. I'm glad you brought that up, Tanner. So I don't remember how. Oh, that's what it was. We were doing fence post for doing fencing and whatnot, and I ended up buying a corded Milwaukee saw, right? And I remember I sold it, right? I was like, so we don't use this thing enough. Well, then I ended up buying a battery powered Milwaukee bandsaw, and I tell you what, that thing is godsend. I'm telling you, it's so smooth instead of everything chattering. It's just smooth. It cuts so nice. It cuts way faster. It melts everything like butter. So I definitely would recommend a DeWalt one. You know what I mean? So I definitely, yeah, that cutter. So I see how you're rubbing it in, Tanner. Oh, the garage door. Hey, Dave, what's up? Bandsaw is, yes, godsend. Amen. All right, guys, I got to get off here, unfortunately, kind of abruptly. I see the kiddos are coming, so you know how that's going to be. It's going to be, but it's been great talking to you guys. You guys, like I say, come up with any questions. Don't hesitate. Shoot me an email. I love talking to you guys and all that, and I wish you guys the best. Oh, right here, don't get stuff. All the fasteners. Yeah, nice. Nice, Tanner. All right, Mr. Garage Door Geek. Yeah. What's up, brother? I always see you once in a while. Hope you're doing good. So I know it never fails, right? It seems like everybody starts coming on right when I'm like, oh, I gotta go. But you know how it is. The kids are coming, man. I got my little one. She's 5, man. She's gonna be up my hiney. So all right, guys, take care. Email me. We'll see you guys later. See you on the next one. Over and out.